All right. Well, I woke up this morning with the cold water, with the cold water, with the cold water. Woke up this morning with the cold water, with the cold water, with the cold. Where are these games? Dojo Classical. Dojo Classical. Do, 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 do. Okay, what day are we here? April last round today at 7:34. That game's probably done, but let's just check. Well, I can check this way. Oh no, it's still going. Cartier Tonk versus Sweetie Pond. All right, we got a game up. Beautiful. Hey, Charlie. Hey, Minichufsy. Welcome, welcome. Just getting started. I'm going to call up some games here. So I've got Cartier Tonk. I've got Sophie Rose. So that's this game here. She's up against Furkan Dengiz. Wow, and she's getting the the full board Maroxy bind used against her. Feel bad for Eyelash in a position like this, just a little bit. But we'll get into it deeper and see how good or bad it actually is. We've got Gurkum. Let's open up Gurkum's game as well. Hopefully this will do it for us. Yep, Gurkum against Skitches. Skitches got crossed back over 2,000. Skitches is doing great. What's more sound, the Kid or the Budapest? They're equivalent. They're about equivalent, Charlie. Like the GM rating on each of those openings is something like a B plus or something. Like they're not so bad. They're not so bad. I mean, I think for like some practical reasons, the Kid is going to be preferred quite a bit by GMs compared to the Budapest, but it's not like directly about how good or bad it is. It's about how many choices you have, how many different lines there are, stuff like that. Okay, because like basically, if you play the Budapest, it's easier for white to be prepared for it than if you play the King's Indian. Like once you play the Budapest, if white has a line that they've learned against it, you've got less options as black to derail things or trick them or like play different kinds of setups. It's like it's easier for white to know what they need to know. Whereas if you play the King's Indian and white prepares some line for you, there's still some latitude for black, some more like alternatives that you can play as the game develops. That means more territory that white has to know. I don't know if that exactly makes sense, but I think that's really sort of like the reason. It's not just about like the evaluation. I think the evaluation is probably pretty comparable with the two. Okay. I do coach Yashwani, but as far as like private and semi-private lessons, I'm pretty darn booked up. But hopefully you can pick up some things by hanging out on our channel. That's what our channel is supposed to do. It's supposed to allow you to learn some things here. Dordom crushed my Budapest. Welcome to the dojo, Sente 7777. Don't ask me about that, Lane Haas. You troll. Hey, Acratic. Good morning. And what a nice morning, or midday for you, I guess, for some classical. All right, we got a game ongoing with Banausos and Jus de Raisin. So let's check that out. Follow Jus de Raisin. Should bring up that game. Here we go, Jus de Raisin against Banausos. Wow, Jus de Raisin has gotten more aggressive in the last like 2 or 3 days, hasn't she? Look at this. Look at this in this position here using the rook. Wow. It's a whole new juice. Yeah, I give a couple private lessons a week, Yashwani, but as I said, pretty darn booked up. Okay, let's call up some more games. Let's just keep going. There's a lot of people playing right now. That's what happens when you've got a 100-person tournament, I guess, right? Stefano Bagino against Abolhid. Oh, they're just kicking off. This game is like 2 minutes old. I do not follow Sente. If you don't know this yet, I don't speak that language. But I do know that the word Sente means initiative. That I do know. This Black King's looking a bit loose? Or would it be this one, who's currently cut off like this? So you also play Go or Ego or Wei Chi probably. I don't know where you're from or anything. Yeah. Okay, game with Abolhid. We got Cheesy Driver versus Yar. You just like the sound of that word. And in this position, rook takes h7 is Sente. Here's Cheesy Driver against Yar. Oh, and another one. Lucan 934. Okay, I want to open it without messing up my live chess. So Lucan 934. Looks like I'm going to need this thing here to guide me. Hang on just a second, folks. Once I've got a lot of games up, I'll talk about them. But first, I do have to get them all going. Okay, it's Lucas 477. Let's try that. Yep, that worked. Oh, he's up against Seth. And he's playing the Banco, and Seth's using his Queen C2 E4 line, which is most grandmasterly, most evil. Chess in black and white. All right, this game also just moments old. Chess in black and white versus Counter Sparks. Wow, d4, d5, e5, c5. Okay, advanced Caro, the quick c5 line. Sometimes white tries to hold the pawn on c5 in this line. What an interesting structure. That's going to be a cool one. Morning, Nargave. Welcome to the show. I'll get back to the position Acratic's talking about soon because it does look exciting. Kid, Nid, Quid, Grunf, Banco Benoni. So almost everything. he doesn't have a main. You're switching opening for 2 months. Glad to hear it, Nargave. That's good stuff. Hey, Drit. Welcome. Great. Great. He's asking you, Acratic, because you're a strong player, and Charlie's looking for some help finding a d4 defense that fits him. Okay, we got Freddie Potzer. Let's try and call that up. Going up against Mip. We've got Douglas U2 and Alexa. Wow. We are blessed with too many riches. We the fans. We the fans. We're blessed with too many riches. Okay, let's check this. So here, I believe, is the position where Acratic said that castling and playing f4 would lead to a position that looks pretty tasty for white. Yeah. Now, white sacrificed 2 pawns for this position. One in the center earlier in the game, and a second one here on the king side to open the h-file. That second pawn sack looked obviously correct and good, but I don't know if the first pawn sack was justified or not. So let's see. It was d5 here. Interesting. Very aggressive. I mean, normally you still have so much more you can develop with your pieces that this would be a rare move here, I imagine. So d5 takes, bishop b7, sacks it to get this diagonal. So had white played a move like bishop c4, black had played d6, and then you're not getting this open. Although it's not like you have nothing here for white. You've got knight d4 and coming into e6. I mean, this is highly playable for white, potentially, right? Just like this. Because basically, you know, moves like this are not always free. More often than not, sometimes they are. Sometimes it's critical. You just block something and yeah, you got away with blocking it. But more often than not, when you stop one thing, you allow some other thing. And then the players have to decide which thing is more important. When does the classical tournament start for May, June? In 38 hours. Cap fee. In 38 hours, the May-June classical tournament will start. An 8-rounder, otherwise exactly the same as the April one. No innovations to speak of coming out of us this time. April ran pretty nice and smooth. We only got positive comments. If you guys have suggested improvements or changes, of course, do let me know. I'd like to know. But yeah, for now, the plan for May, June is it's the same thing, but it's 2 months long and 8 rounds instead of 4. Registration ends in 35 hours cap fee. Every week, we've got a 3-hour window for the tournament directors to do the pairings. So during that 3-hour window, you can no longer request buys or register for that week. and the tournament directors are like working out the pairings. And then when they're done working out the pairings, you can start contacting your opponent for the coming week and play them. There has to be some kind of a window to do that, and I think 3 hours is pretty narrow. So personally, I thank the tournament directors for being willing to be precise about that timing and make the tournament, work really smoothly that way, where you've got the maximum possible time to find your opponent, connect with them, and set up a mutually agreeable time to play. The pairings seemed wonky. Oh, really? Board games? What section were you in? I'm happy to check over it. These volunteer TDs are new to tournament directing, so it's absolutely possible and even likely that they've made some errors in the pairings, and we could talk about it with them and get better at pairing. Are we auto-registered if we were in the April? No. There's a new registration page on a new spreadsheet for the May-June tournament. So, yeah, you'll have to register again. I can't ever assume that people want to play again and then start pairing them without their having communicated with us. There's no registration fee, Cappy. Nope. Yeah, that makes sense, Nargafe. If you want the classical, let us know that you want the classical. I mean, you can do that with bits, but also with words. And if you want something instead of the classical, just tell us what you want, right? So it's cool that Nargafe wants the classical, right? But if you're out there saying I need more lessons on pre-moving technique, then you have to let us know that that's what you're looking for. We'll strongly consider it. We'll strongly consider it, though we will make the ultimate creative decisions ourselves about whether or not that is something that we want to do. Oh, I know, Cheesy. I got it up here. You versus Yar. We got it. We got the game. We've got a raid, Ojo? Oh, from Henrik. Hey, Henrik, sorry I missed it. Thank you for the raid. Oh, it's because I'm scrolled back answering questions. I hadn't yet gotten to the part in the chat where you guys raided. Many thanks for the raid. Sorry, I'm going to skip over a bunch of messages and just do a shout out. Or maybe one of our mods has already done a shout out, hopefully. But I'll tell you this, Henrik, if you're with us for a moment. I know normally when people end a stream, they're like, oh, now I must crash. But feel free to briefly advertise your channel to us in chat so that our viewers may know more about you, and encourage them to do a follow if they like your description of your channel. Because since I don't know you, I can't advertise it for you effectively or properly. So, yeah, please do feel free to do that. Lucky Fluke, tomorrow instead of a rapid tournament, we have a vote chess match. So Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific, which is basically right now, but 15 minutes ago. At the normal time when we have a rapid tournament, we're having a vote chess match against another channel, the Chess Patzer UK channel. So we had a big rapid tournament yesterday. We've got classical today. And so doing a match against another channel tomorrow is great. More variety and diversity. Kosi will be running that. But for vote chess, the bigger the turnout, the better we play. So I highly recommend that you all turn out. Oh, Ojo, you are Henrik, not Ojo? Okay. Hello. Tricky switcheroo there. It is okay to drop out, Drit. So basically, for anybody who wants to play in one of the classical tournaments, okay? For anybody who wants to play in one of the classical tournaments, we do the pairings between 9 p.m. and midnight Sunday. So basically, you have to tell us by 9 p.m. if you want to play the next week or if you don't want to play the next week. If you haven't registered, you have to tell us that you want to register. If you have registered, we will pair you unless you tell us that you want to buy. Does that make sense? So if you need a buy, you have to let us know before 9 p.m. on Sunday. Each different section will have 1 or 2 tournament directors assigned to it. You can request buys in advance if you know that you're going to need weeks off in the registration. But if you don't request buys in advance, then when you get to the registration, if you don't request buys in advance during registration, then when you get to a week where you decide you want to drop out or take a week off or something like that, do please ping your tournament director so that they know. Okay, and let me see what Henrik says. 1200 rated player, trying to improve chess, having a good time. Excellent. So perhaps a particularly good stream for anyone here in the like 1000 to 1400 range who might be working on similar things as Henrik and compare, training methods and all that. Henrik, I know you may have already left, but in case you haven't, or if there are any followers of Henrik's who want to tell Henrik about this later, I do a 1200 to 1400 group lesson every Thursday from 8 to 9 p.m. Pacific, and a 1200 to 1400 training session. So one day we train, one day we have a lesson. And the training session is Tuesdays from 8 to 9 p.m. So that might be the best hour per week, or best 2 hours per week for you to join us over here and see what my training methods are for players right around your rating, in case that may be helpful to you. Okay. How are you pairing based on rapid ratings since it is classical? Well, all we have are people's rapid ratings to go on, so that's what we use. I guess, if that makes sense. The pairings are not posted on Discord, CapFeed. They're posted in the spreadsheet. There's a Google Doc, and everything for the entire tournament goes into one spreadsheet, so there's just like one place. It's like Command Central for that tournament. There you can find like the names of your tournament directors and who you're playing against. You can find the contact info for who you're playing against. You can see your past results. You can see your pairing, etc., and your total score. So yeah, that's 8 to 9 p.m. Pacific on Tuesday and Thursday. I don't know what country you're in, actually, so that may or may not make any sense for you. Based on what time you're ending a stream, maybe you're not in the Americas. It might be a bad time for you. But anyway, we are in this tournament. Let's look at some games here. So in any case, white chose to sacrifice this pawn to make sure this diagonal was open, and then played an extremely aggressive move, aiming at knight f7 potentially. Black very clearly defends it because it's a clear threat. White plays queen c2 with the idea of queen f5 and preparing queenside castling. More nice aggression from white. And on knight e4, there's lots of things white could try here, but they played h4, trying to develop the rook. And I have to applaud white for doing that. Yeah, pretty bad time for Sweden. Sorry, Henrik. So I applaud that. The other big candidate here would be to trade the knight that's on the queen side, so you can keep your knight on the king side, and then put this bishop here, so you've got two bishops raining down hellfire on the black king. So that's kind of like the two approaches. One is to try and get mileage out of your queenside pieces, and the other is to try to get mileage out of the rook. Does that make sense? But basically, if you want to attack your opponent's king, the first prerequisite, the first thing you need to check off if you've got dreams and aspirations of mating fools, right? The first thing you have to do is you have to figure out how to get like a preponderance of pieces near their king, right? So one way to do that is you get your rook involved when they don't have a rook involved. Another way you do that is by finding a way to use your two queenside pieces to reduce the number of pieces on this side, right? Here we traded our queenside knight instead of our kingside knight for the knight on e4, and then managed to use our queenside bishop to actually aim at the king. And you can see white starting to gather in this position as well, a preponderance of white pieces looking at the black king compared to black pieces in position to defend the black king. So that's the first step for any would-be checkmaters out there. Rook came up, knight c6, and look at that. JB transferring the knight generally towards the king side. The one thing missing, though, is this castle's queenside move. That's a really critical move that we're not seeing yet. Bishop there kicking the queen is a very strong defensive move from Banausos. Yeah, that's really unfortunate because now this queen was on its best possible square. So it doesn't want to move somewhere else. I didn't want to get kicked. So here it came here, knight e5. Bishop had to retreat from this knight. And look at how Bonaussos has just suddenly marshaled these forces. This is 3 moves ago, folks. Black doesn't appear to have any coordination or any threats, right? And look at this. Brings the knight to a development square, suddenly coordinates it with the bishop, gets a tempo on the queen, tempo on the bishop, knight f3. And if you look at this change within 3 moves, it looks like white hasn't done a single thing in those 3 moves, right? And black has gone from like nothing to, you know, a raging, like coordinated assault on white's king in the center, winning a rook. And this is game over, you know? There's an hour left on the clock for each player, but once black picks up this rook, I expect black to just run with this game, you know? So that's going to prove to be very decisive. So what we have to think is, did white make a mistake here with knight to d5? And probably yes. Probably at the level that these players are reaching, this knight d5 is basically more or less a decisive mistake. And white needed to play probably castles queenside, like Akratic was wanting this to happen. So this rook could join that side of the board and to get the king out of the center against potential play from black. Meanwhile, this knight, it turns out it was stopping bishop e4. So that was probably like the big moment for white. This move here, it looks nice in the center, but it just didn't work out. Very, very quickly did not work out. All right, so on to another game. I think we've learned what we had to learn now from this one. So let's pop in on our oldest game, like the game that started before the show by like 2 hours. So this is our only like real end game. I think every other game is in the early middle game stages. Let's have a look at our end game here. It's knight and rook against knight and rook, equal material. One rook is into the second rank. The other rook's coming into the second rank. This may be a bad game for pawns. They made it to the end game, which was pretty good, but the rooks might be about to collect them all. I would expect to move b5 here from black to kick this knight and try and get in here. Of course, if black is the one with the advantage, by the way. Their rook got here first, right? So, of course, if black is trying to win the game, they may be thinking of defending their pawns and not trading pawns by coming back, though it's going to be hard to win by retreating. I mean, they do still have this like bad pawn structure for white as a basis to try and eventually win the game. So there may be some alternatives to b5, which allows the rook in with check, but I mean, it would be coming back and blocking, and then this knight moves and maybe grab this. I think black's best off, though, just fighting and hoping to catch more pawns than white first. So, for example, I'll just play some moves to make it more clear to you all what I'm sort of thinking. Here, 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 here. So we could get a situation of this type here, I think. You see black was able to capture pawns like one step faster than white because black had the first step with the rook to the second rank. But you can see that it's still tricky to play this position. You know, white's got ideas of perpetual check or checkmate against this king. Like one idea is that each player could implement looks like this. Trying to do this thing. So anyway, that just gives you a taste of what I'm envisioning for where this game could go. Sweetie Pawn has just played b5. Hey, Alf. Welcome. Yeah, rook d7 is like a must. Like, white has to try rook d7. There's not really anything else that you can consider as white. Although, I mean, if you play knight e3, it's probably going to make no difference. Black will take, and then you can go rook d7. So if you're not sure you want a rook trade, I mean, it might be fine to just play knight e3 first. I don't think white loses any options by doing that, actually. Yeah, so I mean, 93, I think it's like equivalent. It's not worth spending a lot of time thinking about, but 93 is, I think, maybe an equal move to rook d7. And there it is. Cartier plays it and didn't waste too much time. 1 minute is not too much time. They've got 20 minutes to play this endgame, plus like a comfortable 30 seconds per move. So anyway, to anybody new, welcome to the classical coverage. This is the last round of the April tournament. If you follow those links, you can find information about this April tournament, and you can also find registration for the upcoming May tournament, which begins on Monday. And looks like we have just a couple players short of 60 right now in the tournament. Already shaping up for next Monday. Somebody has entered the number 796 in the wrong place here. All right, and so we get rook b2 and rook d7. Now maybe because white's in bad shape, they won't even try taking this pawn. Maybe after king g6, white will immediately go for some knight f5 or knight g4 thing, trying to weave a net around the king because white's in trouble. The mechanism, let me just show the mechanism for what a perpetual check might look like from white. It would be check here, here, threatening checkmate. King can't allow checkmate, so it comes this way. Now we don't take the pawn because the king would get out. Or out, actually. not this way, actually. That would be a mistake. But this way. I suppose that's like playable for white too. You could play this. But anyway, but I just want to show like a drawing mechanism that's available. It's like this, you threaten mate, and when the king comes back, you check here, forcing the king back that way. That would be like one thing that white could try playing for instead of taking pawns over here. Knowing that white's like in the worst position, they could play for that. So we'll see. Okay, king came up. So now we'll see if white takes the pawn or starts working on knight f5. It's going to be a big choice for white here. Okay, Phyllis asks, if I'm unsure I will need a buy, is it okay to ask before the round pairing come out or just assume I will miss it? I'm definitely unsure what that sentence means, but I'll tell you the rule about getting a buy. Okay? The rule for getting a buy is you have to ask by 9 p.m. on Sunday so that you don't get paired. Once 9 p.m. rolls around, you will get... you're asking about, do you have to register for like a round 3 buy? Let's say you think you're going to be busy that week. Do you need to register for it when you initially sign up, or can you tell the tournament director? So basically, on the Sunday when you finish the second week, right, before they do the pairings for the third week, you've got until 9 p.m. that day to tell your tournament director, hey, I'm going to be busy this next week. Can you give me a round 3 buy? By the same token, Phyllis, if you sign up with a round 3 buy, you would have until that same 9 p.m. on Sunday to tell your tournament director, actually, my schedule cleared up a little bit. Please do pair me this round. And then they will pair you. Once 9 p.m. goes past, please let the tournament director do their work in peace for a couple hours. They will do the pairings, and you are now committed to playing that week if you were paired. We will expect you to find some time during that week to play the game with your opponent once you've been paired. That's the crux of how the event has to work. 9 p.m. Pacific. Yeah. Yeah, the Casa Corley game is absolutely awesome. So I'm glad to see that it's famous. I think Casa posted a blog about it, or like a written article about it. Now you guys seem to have found it through a video lecture from what I'm hearing, but I saw Casa like write it up in written form long ago and was like, oh, that is nice. That is nice. right. So this is going to be a big decision for Cartier. One of the last 2 to 3 decisions of the game. 16 minutes left. Probably worth about 5-ish minutes to make this decision, give or take a minute or two. But I could imagine spending about a third of my remaining time on this move right here. You can try Phyllis, except links are auto-blocked in our chat. So if you want to provide the link, what you have to do is you have to whisper to me, and then I can copy-paste it for everybody. I'll be streaming for another 2.5 hours or so, Daster, so I'll get a chance to look at part of your game. And here's the game that people have been talking about. All right. I want to check like maybe one other position or something, right? And bounce around, because I do think Cartier may think for a couple minutes here. So let's check in on Furkan. Oh, this is heated up. Okay, so around here, Furkan played G4, and we said Furkan's giving the full Maroczy bind, right? Acratic finds G4 interesting. I've played G4 in similar positions myself. G4, G5, yeah. And B5. All right, so she finds a way to just straight up play B5. This was the last position we saw, so she was thinking here and went for B5. Okay, so White didn't take it, but had White taken it, what's the justification, right? Here, maybe not even recapturing, maybe just Knight takes B4 would be pretty good, right? Maybe just Knight takes B4 would be pretty good. Looks vaguely sufficient for black. There's no trick like Knight D5 because you can just take it. The black piece is actually looking kind of coordinated despite the small amount of space they had to work with. I mean, maybe like this, planning to sink the knight this way. Maybe, I mean, like black's okay tactically, but maybe white still has some play. But I mean, we can see that black's kind of in the game, right? Like, they've got this threat. They're temporarily sort of up a pawn. They've got knight c5 to untangle the bishop and rook and all the pieces. So I would guess that it's c b5 knight b4 would have been the idea, but you know, there may be some possibility to just recapture. There may be some other moves for black, but that looks pretty tempting to me. And if that's the case, it asks whether instead of g5, white should have taken time out to play a4 and stop b5. Like when black played a6, did white realize that black was ready to play b5 and that b5 was threatened? And maybe white didn't play a4 because a4 doesn't even stop it. So let's just check here. Takes. Bishop takes, queen takes. Any tricks I don't see. Pawn takes, knight takes. Black looks dead to me. Okay, so I think a4 would prevent b5 and should definitely have been considered by white, but we're not going to spend years sort of puzzling that out. We'll just throw that out there that if black is threatening b5, you might want to play a4 to stop it. That's pretty typical to not let your opponent move when you're playing this bind. The point of binding somebody is literally to keep them from moving. That's the point, you know? So if you let them move, you're not really in the bind strategy or mood. Knight a3 and now a5. I mean, what a sick move. Idea is to take on b4 with a pawn and hit these pieces. It's chaotic now, and who knows what's going on. Furkan spent almost 9 minutes on the next move here, which was knight d5, and that's the live position. And here, Eyelash is currently thinking. what Furkan wanted was, to sort of absorb this move, like just bringing this knight to a good square, controlling b6, playing knight d5 as well anyway. And Eyelash is looking for even more tactical chaos here. In general, like wild tactical chaos here is kind of what black wants compared to getting squished, if that makes sense. Like, one of your options in this opening is white squishes you and you can't move any of your pieces. So when you compare that to some weird, crazy stuff happens, I would say black is well enough placed here to embrace wild, crazy stuff. Sean really letting the Dutch defense have it in the chat. Okay, so knight d5 was played, but we'll just look at this position for a second before we get too far into it. Benaussos has converted the game against JB that we had sort of predicted once this rook fell. Geez, this attack really just brutal. A couple pieces come out and suddenly it's just murder. Okay, so oh, sorry, JB. Didn't want you to see that. I had the sense you might be popping in a moment, but you'll see in the VOD that you receive both compliments and advice in the commentary there. So, I mean, one of the things that we see, for those of you who saw JB's private lesson this week, the lesson was about getting the rooks involved out of the opening. And I saw a game of hers yesterday against Chestien, where she got really aggressive with like a big rook lift and an attempted kingside attack, and then an f4 pawn sack to try and bring the next rook out on the file. And then this game today, as well, where you see her playing h4 here instead of, castling and, sacking a pawn to get this rook active. And you see her playing in a whole new way. And what's the result? Well, in the two games that we've seen where she did a great job of deploying my advice and fighting with these new tools and ideas that she's just gained, the result was 2 losses, right? Out of 2 games that we've seen with her like using the lesson. So what's the lesson there? I mean, does it mean like lessons are bad for you? Trying out new things is bad for you? Basically, here's like a truth about like acquiring really new information and trying to like employ it and deploy it. Like, it involves often a little drop off before it takes off. It takes you a while to incorporate new ideas into your past ideas. So at first, and this is one of the reasons I don't tell people like 10 new things at once, because at first you have your ideas and a new idea comes in, and now you have to incorporate it with your other ideas and figure out how to balance them and how to play positions and ideas that you haven't played before. What are the new like tactics and resources for the opponent that develop? So it can be like a really rough little patch when you try to make a real improvement in some part of your chess knowledge or chess skills. This is different than fixing a problem you have. So someone who has like a problem with their time trouble or a problem with like losing confidence or something like that, if they fix one of those yourself problems, if you fix like a psychological thing or like a personal weakness kind of thing, you will see immediate improvement. And that's why you'll sometimes see somebody just like go up like 100 points in like a week or two after getting some advice from a teacher, because it's a different kind of thing that teachers teaching them about. So for example, some quick examples. Falk stopped multitasking while playing their games. I said, Falk, focus on your games, right? It's like amazing what you can do when you just think about your games. And now when Falk wants to study chess, instead of like sitting at a computer with 10,000 apps and alerts, Falk apparently goes and sits out in the garden with a chessboard and like paper books or like printouts of the games that he wants to look at. But Falk, before that, said like, I'd never played a chess game without also watching a video and like checking my email at the same time or something like that, right? And this is like an Socratic thing as well. So Falk stopped doing that and gained 100 points in like 3 days or whatever, right? Or like Jackson Chess a couple weeks ago was at like 1700 and was playing 15-minute games in like 1 minute total. And winning some of them and losing, and he was like, I was doing great. I was winning a lot of games. But if you looked at the rating went from like 1709 to 1707 and then 1711 and then 1708 after like hours and hours of playing it. And I said, if you're trying to get your rating up to 1750, I think was what we were talking about at the time. If you're trying to get your rating up to 1750, he'd been playing for like, 5 hours. Like you could have done that in 1 hour by playing 3 games instead of by playing like 50 games. He did that and got to 1750 in like an hour. And then I said, well, I mean, actually now for this tournament, our cutoff's going to be at 1800, right? And I'm like, but don't worry, like you can do that within a short amount of time, certainly within a day, if you just slow down and take your time. You don't need to grind the games to grind the rating points. So he slowed down and he ended up gaining like 300 points in a week by just using, 12 minutes instead of 12 seconds on these games. So if you fix some things about yourself, you can definitely see like an immediate dramatic like rise in your rating sometimes. But if you try to acquire new chess knowledge, like I'm learning how to like, trade queens earlier in the game and like grind out endgames, or I'm like working on opposite side castling or something like that, right? You guys can think of Vladimir Kramnik trying to play e4 and open Sicilians after a lifetime of one knight f3. And then he went into chess tournaments against guys like Topalov and Anand, and he played 1e4 and he went right into like their open Sicilian and said like, charge! And got speared, in 20 moves, like again and again. And this is like, a world champion level player, right? So when you try to acquire new knowledge and incorporate it, it usually involves like a dip or a real like struggling period. Now, I'm used to that struggling period being about 3 months. But that's from an era, my experience comes from an era where it was OTB and myself and other people I knew were playing maybe one tournament per month. So we would play one like, 3 or 4 round tournament on like a Saturday, game 45 or something, and then have a month like at home, like looking over some games, like reading chess books and stuff. And then a month later, there'd be another tournament we'd go play. And it would take like 3 months before you'd see somebody who's been able to like incorporate some new information and some new ideas and actually like deploy them in a way that's helping their game to actually start their uptick. Nowadays, that might go faster because, I mean, you guys play at least one tournament a week, many of you. So you might see that process happen in 3 or 4 weeks instead of 3 months, but you definitely are going to have growing pains. So when they say there's like a learning curve, the learning curve is actually going to be like dip, struggling period, and then you can incorporate it and improve. So that is to be expected, I would say. All right, back to Furkan and Eyelash. So Eyelash played a5, obviously confusing, but Furkan's a strong player with time on the clock. It's classical chess. He can figure it out, and we can, or she or they can figure it out, and we can too. So, a5, white to play. So we can eliminate this option pretty much for white right away. We don't want to get forked. We could take on b5 with like a knight, because then a takes b4 won't fork us anymore. But we can eliminate this way of doing it as well, because after pawn takes, This knight's getting sent back in a bad direction. Now there's no knight coming to d5, right? We didn't end up with the knights where we really want them. And black can probably get away with rook a2. And I mean, white can keep fighting because, they've got like a lot of reasonably placed pieces, but it's clearly not what white is going for in any way, right? So, you could go knight here with the idea of bringing this knight to d5. But white basically did that, tried to play in that direction by going knight d5 here. The other option is this. This is like a big move because it's allowing the fork but going for stuff. And this is the classic takes kind of variation that you guys in the, basically at almost any rating level, but certainly from like 1,000 up to 2,000, like the takes kind of variations are basically the most important for you guys to know. They don't tend to show up in tactics trainers either. Some simple examples of them do, but they're always examples where you're winning, which really destroys the point of a takes variation. The point of a takes variation, as far as being able to calculate it, is that you calculate something like pawn takes, 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 and then you ask yourself who has more or less pieces. If it's in a puzzle, then almost always, that some series of captures leaves you ahead, right? So it defeats the whole point. One of the main points of these takes variations is that people struggle to count which pieces are left at the end of it, right? So basically, these don't show up that much in puzzles. They'll only show up in puzzles when the starting move is a deflection or a trick, and then there might be 2 or 3 more captures to show that it works. You don't get practice just looking at positions like this and saying, if I take, am I ahead or behind? Also, a very, very huge percentage of takes variations end up with equal material. Those are also never going to show up in a tactics puzzle, right? Because tactics puzzles aren't about trading 3 pieces for 3 pieces and then having a random position to evaluate, right? That's not in tactics puzzles. But this is the most frequent type of calculation that you need to know how to do to come out well in your games. So why don't you guys try and do this takes calculation? And notice black could play rook a3 or pawn c3. Why don't you guys try this one? And they're harder when there's multiple branches, which this one has. This one is definitely a medium or intermediate level kind of takes. I'd guess it's in the 1500 range to do this accurately. So you guys try takes in here. It should be the easiest because they happen so often. But since people don't train them, I think they don't necessarily improve at them. They come up and you get it right or wrong, and you don't necessarily even get that much better at doing it unless you're sort of reflecting and constantly trying to find those improvements or trying to find those lessons in your own games, win or lose. Whether you get it right or wrong, win or lose the game, to double check the takesing that you calculated. So why don't you all try and calculate that takes here for a bit, and I'll tell you that JB, as long as you play hard, you're not responsible for how good or bad a game it is for your opponent in any kind of weird, complicated moral way. You just come to the game, you play your best, and you play your hardest, and you're respectful to your opponent. You can't guarantee them an easy or a hard game. And part of the mystery and appeal of a chess game is that your opponent doesn't know if they're going to win or lose, or win quickly or lose quickly, or win slowly or lose slowly, right? That's the intrigue in chess, is not knowing, because as you're playing the early game, you don't know if your opponent's going to allow you a tactic or not. That's so crucial to chess. Your opponents need to occasionally win a quick game. They need to occasionally have a hard game. They need that mix. So don't worry about which part of the mix you're providing on any given day. Just be there for your opponent, and that's enough. Just play some moves. Ooh, PB Corporeal says that PB Corporeal had to do prep for you between yesterday and today. Nice. What do you do if your opponent still isn't here? See, that's the real problem, JB. You see that? Chess Games may have a missing opponent. And that's when you've got a problem. That's when you've got a problem. Chess Games, you can let your tournament director know for your section if your opponent's not there. And if they don't show up for a while, you will unfortunately be given like a forfeit win for this round, which a forfeit win is pointless and doesn't mean anything or give you anything, unfortunately. Your man is MIA. You send him any messages on chess.com? Idle player I've seen play in multiple tournaments. They don't normally no-show. Messaged him on Discord. He's not on live chess right now, so that's not going to help. Unless he's got push notifications on chess.com. Hang on. All right, I've sent him a message on chess.com. If it lets me send messages, we'll see. It didn't show me like a bunch of pictures of like fuzzy pixels and asked me if they were boats or bicycles. So yeah, I think it went through. You know, the funny thing about that, Amanda, is yesterday during our Mega Rapid tournament, somebody said, I'm playing against, what do I do? I'm like sitting here against an idle player and what do we do to keep other people from getting paired with them? And I said, oh, if there's an idle player, I can like boot them so they don't get paired next round. And at exactly that moment, idle player popped up and said, hey, why would you boot me? But now he's on the wrong side of that. Yeah, it's round 4, and people are generally getting pretty good at this. So I know, I mean, anytime there's somebody who's like new to our tournaments, I'm like, they might get the time zone wrong. Let's like, you should really make sure they know what time they've agreed to. But when somebody's played in a few tournaments, I think they usually kind of know. Yeah. So. All right, so here's the position. Oh yeah, I asked you guys about the takes. So did anybody have an answer? If white takes with the pawn and black takes with the pawn, what's going on? Who's ahead? The first round for the next tournament starts at midnight between Sunday and Monday. It is 37 hours away, Race to GM, the May-June tournament. If you've registered for that, you should be able to find your pairing in that spreadsheet Sunday night at midnight or Monday at 0:00 a.m. Pacific time. And then you'll have that whole week to connect with your opponent and play it. So what do you guys think? Coder Future said it looked winning for black. Acratic says black looks ahead and the taking because taking on c3 attacks the queen. That's correct, Coder. Very good. Well, Linear Stork, in general, you guys shouldn't schedule your games at 7 p.m. Pacific because the game won't be done at 9 p.m. Pacific and we won't be able to do pairings for the next round. However, This is the last round of the April tournament, so it doesn't affect the pairings for the May-June tournament, Linear Stork. So since it's the last round of the April tournament, that doesn't matter at all. It's no problem. But in general, for those of you scheduling your games in future weeks, we would like your games to be done by 9 p.m. Sunday, because from 9 p.m. to midnight, that's when we get our pairings done for the coming week, right? Very hard to schedule this time. Yeah, and I understand, like, it can be tricky. You know, you do your best. I'm not going to be, like, mad at you or anything. It's just potentially a tournament director could just not pair you for the next week if they don't yet have your result for the current week. That's basically what could happen, you know? And then oh well. I would say it's kind of like the best that the TD can do with that situation. And yeah, that's life. That's part of, you know, trying to arrange complicated things across the world. All right. So the correct answer was after takes, and black takes here, it's going to attack the queen. They can take with the bishop or with the rook, right? But let's say they take with the bishop, for example. The queen's going to move somewhere. And we can go takes, and black is going to be ahead 1 pawn. Yeah. So, okay, it looks like we probably have a game between Chess Gains and Idle Player now. Let's see if that worked. Nope. Let's see. No, it looks like they're not playing yet. Yeah, that probably works too, Acratic. Yes, for the Mega Rapid prizes from yesterday, Flachspieler. So as far as like the prizes for best under 1,000, 1,200, 1,400, 1,600, etc., that I will figure out. As far as if you think you played like a best game prize, like a brilliancy game or a beautiful game, if you feel like you played a nice Zugzwang, a great end game, a fastest win, a biggest upset, anything like that, you have to send me the game to let me know, because I can't play through 400 games looking for which games I think are good. It's just a little bit too much. David just does not have the time. So yeah. So you can like ping it to me on Discord or send it to me in like a message on chess.com or something. So okay, so let's see what they actually did this game. Wait, this all happened in the actual game. Oh no, similar. E6 was played first. Okay, so Furkan plays knight d5 and then on e6 now takes on b5 with the pawn. Knight takes b4. Knight takes b4. Bishop c3. Wow, this is so risky for black, I gotta say. This situation looks risky for black. So I think black has in mind, if they lose this pawn, I think they wanted to take like this. And if queen d3 to defend the piece, rook c3 and white loses. But, I mean, black's got no dark squared pawns left. This looks like risky to the point of death for black. I mean, isn't this position just lost for black? I mean, black needs like one really good move to not just lose here. Okay, maybe queen here. Maybe queen here. Hey, Findle. Maybe this move, like, it's still a game. So now there's this move. Not rook b5, knight d6. See that square? That's the attack everything square. So here. Huh, look at that. Black's in the game. It's too complicated for me to calculate everything while doing a good show, folks, but man, I guess maybe bishop b4 would have worked out. But it would have been like a massive calculation by Eyelash. Oh, and it was. Look at this. E6 was 29 minutes. Bishop c3, 3 minutes, but she'd already had this idea in mind beforehand. And now we get here. So it looks like this pawn's going down, maybe this pawn's going down. These are both passers. They somehow got on the other side of each other. So after this and this are captured, these are both going to be pretty dangerous pawns. Especially White's is like well defended on b6 by these pieces. This position still looks a bit risky for Black, I would have to say. If I had to choose who was riskier here, it's risky for both sides for sure, because the White king is all opened up and there's not going to be a pawn storm. That's completely irrelevant. We're going to play on the queen side now, so this is only relevant as like a dramatic weakening of White's own king. It's purely bad right now. That doesn't mean White's position isn't overall good, because this crazy fight Black started, maybe White can win it with the b pawn, but it's a super risky situation. White's pieces are better coordinated, says Socratic. Yeah, I agree. They're sort of like, the bishops are well placed aiming this way. Both are defended at the moment. This piece is all right. This piece is a little bit weird. It's like good and weird. The knight still needs a home. And this knight could be like crushing on d6. So Black has to decide, right? Like, are we playing d5 as our way to lose this pawn anyway, but try and keep the knight out of d6? Can we keep the knight out of d6? Oh man, it's the hell of the bind. Is like, even when you blow things up, sometimes it's not that good for you. This e6 move right now is really hurting Black. It was the 29-minute think, but it might not have been good. I was feeling pretty good about the sort of general explosion that Black was doing, until I see the weakness that e6 creates. Now I don't feel like Black has the better of the fight on the queen side. That really changes it for me. It's very nice to have somebody to like fill in when there are odd numbers or no-shows or something like that. That's very nice. Oh, and CloudSet's saying, you know, maybe if d5 gets played, you just play knight d6 anyway. I mean, who says you have to take and take with the queen, right? Maybe you just do this anyway. And then you might not even take. You might play e5 next. Although, I mean, there's not anything like terrible about like taking and getting like, you know, a queen or a bishop on d5 could be good too. I'm sensing like a second big think from Eyelash here, because I think her position's in sort of semi-critical shape. Fiona needs a 2400 for a sub-battle? Well, Halions, you can't just flip over a rock and find a 2400, I'm afraid. I'm pretty much busy doing the commentary here. You would have to pay me more than a free sub to pull me away from my dojo flock. But good luck to you guys in the sub battle. I suppose you could just not have a player at that point, right? I don't know exactly how sub battles work, I guess, but it doesn't seem like a big deal. $1 million. Fiona would have to pay me $17 to betray the dojo flock. Do I know Shaka King 3? No. Okay, Let's check back in our end game. Looks like white's still trying to give a perpetual, but it's not looking very likely. So let's see what happened. We had here, check, here, takes, take. Oh, b4. Oh, man. Oh, because look at this. This is what black did. Instead of taking a2, black played here. That was insane. What a move from Sweetie Pawn. Come on. Who would ever think of rook c2? Instead of taking the a pawn and letting white take here, instead of letting white set up this, Sweetie Pawn plays rook c2, not taking this to attack a pawn that white will easily defend when they capture the next pawn white was going to take. I didn't even see that move. It was such a like wasted looking move. But the point was here to play b4. And the point is, you know, if white hadn't played rook c7, if white went straight to rook h7, in either case, Sweetie Pawn would take the c pawn one move sooner instead of this, dislodge the king, and find space for the black king to avoid that perpetual mechanism. That is fantastic. Now that king can get away. You guys see that? Wow. And hides behind white's h-pawn. We don't want to take it. We want to hide behind it and then go win on the queen side with this b-pawn. Oh, but we shouldn't take this pawn, should we? Continue with your plan, Sweetie Pawn. It was electrifying me, this plan. Why did you take the pawn on h4 now? You were home free. Was she afraid that like this might actually be fast enough to be an issue? I don't think so. Actually, it's pretty close. It's only one step away. But at the end here, you know, you just give some kind of a checkmate. Oops. Now what's the deal with this pawn? Oh, no. Oh, sweetie. Oh, sweetie, you had such a sweet b-pawn, and we lost, what, 2 moves taking the h-pawn, or just 1 move? 1 move, like, sometimes like that move wastes so much time, and it's like, it's 1 tempo, right? And remember, I was like, oh, we're just so much faster, but it was by 1 tempo from white queening with check in this variation, right? Somehow, it was only 1 tempo away, right? If white had 1 more move, it would be queens with check, and black would be mated. A lot of these things that seem like, it's like, oh, there's no chance. And it's like 1 move away. So let's see how many moves black wasted taking the h-pawn. 1. That was a rook check king move. It didn't change tempi. Only 1 move. It's only a 1 move tempo. And now this thing looks like it's going from a winner to dead. I mean, the pawn can be defended by knight d3. The thing is that then, you know, white's going to play king e3. And of course, you guys know I'm like biased in favor of my students. So obviously, like, you would expect me to be rooting for Cartier. And, you know, I'm not like trying to hide anything about biases. Like, everybody has biases. I have mine. I'm not going to pretend they're not there. I root for Cartier-Tonk. But when somebody plays a move like rook c2, the number one thing that I root for is chess, and this is just a beauty. So I was then rooting for Sweetie to finish this off. That king hiding on h3 was glorious, and then, so sad for me to see that b-pawn meet such a sad fate. So here might not be losing for black. Yeah, black's never going to lose. Black is up 2 pawns. The question is white maybe going to get a draw? If white gets a draw, that's like losing for black at this point. I mean, it's as far as like that's what you don't want. No, I mean, black literally can't lose this game. But if they fail to win, that will be quite sad for black. Oh, man. All right. Let's check something else. Gorkum versus Skitches. We've got white up 2 pawns. 2 pawns. They've just captured them as well, it turns out. Look at this. It just happened. Hum, hum, hum. The queen was doing her best rook impression, right? This is what rooks dream of doing and do all like every day. Every day I'm munching. The rooks just get in there and do that, and the queen just did her impression of it. But I think black should have enough to draw here. Oh, to draw? Horror! To win! I was going to say at the end, you know, you can see how weak white's pawns are, and black could take this one, or they could take this one first, threatening f2, and threatening this pawn. It's over. Skitches steals it. That queen took too many pawns. Oh, this was the blunder then. 2 minutes on this. And look at this, folks. Skitches can win a piece by force here, right? How long do you think Skitches spent on queen takes queen? And how many moves does black have here, you know, other than queen takes queen, right? With their queen undefended. It's basically like queen takes queen and queen b2. And queen takes queen wins a piece. How long do you think Skitches spent before playing queen takes queen? Starting with, you know, about 50 minutes. Well, now you can see the time, so I kind of told you. Skitches spent a little bit over 8 minutes. Double checking, making sure, captures. In this position, Skitches probably looked at, you know, knight b7 and knight e6. Neither of them works. You can take it or you can save your bishop while taking it. But Skitches probably looked at a lot of moves there just to be sure. Every single legal move that might mess with you. Rook d7, etc. All right? So just being very, very sure. And then in this position, Skitches probably looked at, you know, just really, really hard double checking. Right? I mean, Skitches doesn't need 50 minutes left if they're up a bishop, right? So spend your time double checking that, even if it's a relatively simple 2-move variation of takes, takes, and there's not really any... There aren't any side branches that have any length to them, right? Like if I say that Skitches looked at knight e6, yeah, Skitches looked at knight e6 and then stopped. They didn't have to like calculate like a 3-move variation off on that branch, right? Same with knight b7, takes, and you don't have to calculate anymore. So it's not like a massive calculation burden here, but you're just double checking it all. You're looking really hard for any alternative moves for the opponent. Okay, good choice by white. This is going to be a semi-dangerous pawn. So check here. We want to grab this here, here, here. King off the back rank to stop that. And black wins. That's what black needs to calculate here. All right. Here we are. Good calculation by Skitches. Some people would be afraid that the pawn queens and not like calculate rook c1 correctly, or not want to make the effort to calculate rook c1 correctly. So you just get behind the rook, behind the pawn to stop c6, right? Safer. Then white plays rook check, bishop here, b4, and now like, oh, now I have to fight against 2 connected pass pawns that my bishop can't attack. Huh. What happens now? Now again, if you do the work of calculating really hard here for black, you can win this position too. But each time you delay making a difficult calculation and make life harder for yourself, and then you're like, oh, this is even more lame. And then you don't want to calculate it. You're like, well, maybe I'll just play like, you know, f5, king f7, and things will work out. You know, the next problem is going to be harder and harder and harder. Right? So that is the case for doing the work up front. It's like a social media post I saw the other day where somebody said, I usually spend 3 weeks not doing a thing because I'm procrastinating it and I'm afraid of doing it. And then when I finally do it, it takes 5 minutes. Right? And I think there's like a similar dynamic here in chess where like if you put off like putting in the effort to win your game, it gets harder and harder to actually win the game. And it requires more and more work to eventually win it. So. Yeah, black is up a piece in this endgame, Amanda, and still has to put in a bit of work. That's still the rule. You still have to put in some work. All right, what's going on here? The knight's on d6. We had rook a2, knight d6, rook here. So, strong knight, 2 strong passed pawns. This one seems to have a ticket to b7. This one needs to get through b3. That's a bad contrast for black. Black rooks are amazing compared to white rooks, but the white minor pieces are better placed. This can't really move. Oh, actually, this square is still covered. Okay, it's not done yet. I'm not dead yet, says Eyelash. So it's up to Furkan to get her more dead, right? That's the job, Furkan. Get her more dead here. All right, let's see Stefano versus Abelhid. We've got an interest. Oh, yeah, for everybody who's interested in these bishop versus knight situations, we've got this one, and 2 moves from now, white's going to set up that one. So this is a good chance to look at it. So bishop comes here, setting up this, and important features of the setup are this bishop can get back to support the diagonal if it wants to. It's white's move, and there's no tactical reason white can't play h3, trying to chase the bishop. This is like an e5 Sicilian, and so both of these squares are weak, so the opponents both have knight d4 and knight d5 available. Since black played this move first, you know, white could consider playing bishop g5 themselves, right? Generally, if you're the second one to the party, like these kind of tactics work out worse for you if the other person's always moving first before you do. So that would be a reason for white in this position here not to play bishop g5 or knight d5. And white did play one of those moves followed by the other of those moves. Okay, so that'd be a reason not to do it. But one thing white has going in their favor is that black can't play bishop e7. So actually, if white tries to force the game into this knight g5, knight d4, bishop g5 kind of direction, black has no defense to that, whereas white could play bishop e2. However, you'll notice in the game, white played knight d5 first and then bishop g5. That meant in this position, to play bishop g5, they gave up the chance to play bishop e2. Black takes here first and messes up white's structure, and then white messes up black's structure. So we get sort of an equal amount of destruction. Potentially, if in this position white had started with bishop g5, then on knight d4, white could play bishop e2, avoid getting destroyed, and keep open knight d5 as an option. That may well have been slightly favorable for white. Also, the move h3 might have been slightly favorable for white. That's what I probably would have played, is just h3. Because I like where my bishop is. I don't want to be playing bishop back to e2 defensively. I'm not in a rush to play bishop g5, actually, because, well, let me just show you why. Like, takes. If black wants to prevent bishop g5, they're going to have to play this h6 move here, which is not, well, I guess it's okay. That's a good move. It should be done. It should be done at that point. Yeah. But I would like this position with my unopposed light squared bishop. I think it's got a lot of potential. So this is what I would go for white. The choice white made, getting to this position here, is going to be very complicated. Now it's a question of whose queen can first get into like the weak squares on the H file, and whose rooks can first get to this file. This is going to be very, very exciting and complicated, but it should be about equal right now. Actually, whose move is it? It's white's move. Whoever's move it is should have the advantage here. Whoever's move it is should have the advantage here. All right, I'm going to take a quick bathroom break. I'm going to leave the position up for you. So enjoy. Maybe refill some water, get a snack. So I'll see you guys in like 5 minutes. All right, how are they doing here? Wow, it's classical. They're using their time. Bravo. Look at this move from white. That's very, very threatensome. Excellent, excellent move, Abelhid. Mad props. Mad props. So on queen h6, which threatens knight f6, the defense will be rook g8 to g6. So well defended by Stefano against this move as well. The other defense black always has in store for this is black can always switch to opposite colored bishops whenever they want to. And it'll be complicated. It'll be a very aggressive middle game where both sides are in danger of getting checkmated. Well, presumably Acratic, he has in mind, presumably Desert Pagel has in mind to be part of one of the 1% that are not in that case, right? And of course, I mean, probably lots of people in the companies that you describe as trash didn't intend for their companies to be trash, but we can have faith in Desert Pagel since they're a valued member of our community here. All right, so king h8, queen h6, rook g8, g6 looks fine for black. So maybe white needs to consider bringing the rooks in too at this point. Right, that makes mostly sense. Okay, so king h1 would be my main candidate for white here. Yeah. All right, let's click around. Let's click around. So here, bishop c4 was played. I was thinking black might go rook a1 to trade some pieces, but it's true that it's the black rooks that are superior to the white rooks. So why was I thinking rook a1? That doesn't really make sense because it just trades off the best part of black's position. Like I was thinking, haha, look, I came down into white's side of the board, but really, all this does is makes it easier and easier for white to win, right? Because black's left white with their superior pieces and their b pawn, and with less pieces on the board, you're more of like an endgame, and the b pawn is more of a factor. So that was a really counter to the position idea I had for black to maybe play rook a1 there. Instead, the rook drops back and fights for control over the blockade square of this pawn and keeps the rooks on the board, which makes sense. What's Amanda's milestone? Did she just hit 1,000? Just hit 1,000. I knew you were closing in on it. So when I saw everyone congratulating Amanda, I could kind of guess what it must be. That is beautiful, Amanda. You're so close to being a chess player. Actually, Sacrificer, I have to sit down and figure that out. But it'll be something cool, some kind of an appearance on the channel, probably. Coming on and, maybe like having a lesson with Kostya or Jesse or me, or playing a game with one of us, something like that. That was from Pleafer's perspective, Amanda. That was from a hypothetical. You know how poems are written from the perspective of a speaker, or like your lyrics are written from the perspective of a speaker who may or may not be you and who may or may not exist. It was from an imagined speaker was saying that they hate you, and it was a speaker who was rated under 1,000. I'm not rated under 1,000, so you can quickly identify that the writer of those words was different than the purported speaker of the words. Aha, so you've got a startup as well, Acratic. Destined to be part of the 1% or the 99%? Little Spaghetti, I sort of think that around 1,200 someone becomes a chess player, meaning they pass from the phase of just hanging pieces or picking up the pieces their opponents hang into the phase of really engaging in a struggle of ideas with an opponent who also has their own ideas. Now, that said, people seem to be getting better and better, and perhaps I should move my bar down, because sometimes we've got 700s who come in here and explain like some positional subtlety, and my mind is blown, and I think, well, maybe they'll just be 1,200 in a week, and somehow, their rating hasn't caught up yet. But people are getting quite good. Desert Pagel offers shares in Desert Pagel. How much do they cost, Desert Pagel? What would a 1% share of you cost? A 1% stake in Desert Pagel. How much would that be? Wait, what? How you make startup? He probably had a lawyer draft up articles of incorporation. That's probably what he did. That was the day that he made his startup. It's not working in the sense that you can't stop hanging pieces, or it's not working in the sense that you've stopped hanging pieces completely and your rating still won't go up to 1,200. I'm very interested, Spaghetti, to hear where it is. At 1,100 right now. And a lot of the games have no blunders. Wow. That's amazing. So, organization agreement. Cool. Presumably written by a lawyer, not by yourself, Acratic. I at least got that part right. Okay, so here we are in the game. Queen e2, Queen c7, e5. Locking in the knight. And this bishop will not see home for a long, long time. Knight b6, bishop b3. Okay, both pawns are under lock and key. Is it Nimzovich who would be proud? Was it Nimzovich who said that these were criminals? Past pawns? Institutional grade legalese. Nice. Yeah. Warning, Alf Books, new ideas often take a while to develop into rating points. Often you play worse for a while with your new ideas. Okay. By the way, Acratic, Menshik is also a philosopher, in case you don't know that. Sweetie Pawn did win this endgame? Wow. Do say. How did it happen? Okay, so it went to forcing the knight trade, going to the rook ending, checking the king back, and king comes up. Yeah, there's still hope to win, I suppose. That makes sense. That was a good defense, but there's this. Could white have saved this? This is the best white could get. Cartier has played like absolute like top-notch defense here. The question is, did black have any defense in this rook and pawn ending at this point? Interesting. So Spaghetti thinking a lot of games don't have blunders in them. That's really interesting. So basically, the person asking if it's a Philidor draw, Desert Pagel, right? Basically, if the white king were in front of the pawn, then this would be a draw. It's because the white king's not in front of the pawn that it's not a draw. If the white king were in front of the pawn, for example, white could trade rooks, king takes, and play king e2, and that would be a draw. Same thing on rook a3, rook e3. If your king were in this area, right, in a lot of these cases, you can trade the rooks and draw the king and pawn ending. I guess here not, because black would have that space. So, additionally, if your king's not in front of the pawn, you're better off having it on the shorter side than on the longer side, because your rook needs to operate on the longer side, and you don't want your king getting in the way of your rook. So this is very, very tricky to try and draw for white. So I should say that something like the Philidor position in rook endgames or the Lucena position or anything like that, those are single reference positions. When you get a real position in a game of yours, it's not ever exact. I mean, it's not like this is the Philidor position or this is the Lucena position. It's like this has features that could be like the Philidor position. How do I use that reference position to help me play towards the right kind of positions where I could draw? Or how do I use ideas from that draw to influence the moves I choose within this position here? I think white's lost here. I don't see a way to draw it. Some GMs may call those building blocks, yeah. Right, so white played rook a3, and black played this, which looks good as well, except my suspicion is that this is the winning move for black here. I don't know if there's anybody here with strong enough rook and pawn endings to confirm or deny this claim. But rook c4 looks like the end of white. I know this. If your king can't even get in front of the pawn, you're done. Checking from behind will never be enough on its own without a king like near the pawn. Cut off by 2 files when the pawn's getting this close to queening, I think is too late. And the only way to cross files usually is to offer a rook trade. But you can see that the white king is way too far away to trade rooks, right? We've already determined that black wins after a rook trade. So I think in this position, rook c4 was just dead. That I'm feeling pretty confident about, even though I usually get rook endgames wrong in my own games. I can't imagine any like saving maneuver for white here, anything that would even postpone death. So then the other suggestion that someone had given was rook a8 here. Why can't you check from behind like in the Philidor? Well, in the Philidor, you only check from behind once the rooks come to the third rank and your king's here and the opponent's king has nowhere to hide. Right now, this king has plenty of places to hide. So I would guess the same move wins the game. Rook c4, cutting off your king. This king can come here and just slowly the pawn edges forward. And I'll show you why checking doesn't help. The king always hides in front of the pawn. And you can wait like this, but the king can always step out at some point. And when you check him, he steps forward 2 steps in front, right? Then whatever you do, the pawn's going to advance. So you could wait or you can attack it. It doesn't matter. Black's going to do this. And now you could attack it or you could wait on either side of the king. But it'll always step out to one side or the other. And when you check, it'll come here. And this position is now actually the Lucena position, not the Philidor position. Okay, so all that said, I believe this endgame here was lost for white from the moment this was traded. Chess.com engine. And with only 2 pieces on the board, it should know. -10, -2, -10, minus... I didn't ask for the chess.com yo-yo. I asked for the chess.com engine. -12. All right, it's dead. So I think Cartier defended valiantly, but there was actually never a defense. It was always a losing position. Very, very interesting endgame from Sweetie Pawn. Hopefully everybody enjoyed that. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it. How many PhDs in philosophy we have? I guess we've got a lot of dojoers at this point, because sometimes I'm like, we got a lot of teachers, and then I'm like, oh, we got a lot of people from Sweden, and then it's like, oh, we got a lot of people from, Slovakia, and oh, we got a lot of philosophers. I mean, we just have a lot of everybody by now, or something. That's crazy. Exactly, Jesse the Sensei. Or Jesse the Sensei. All right, so I think that game is done and dusted. I think we figured it out. Black almost ran out of enough material to win the game when this rook got behind the B pawn, but actually made a great decision, folks. A great decision to go to the rook endgame. And who would have thought that, right? But this king on f4 is so strong. And then black can just set up this win like this. Maybe white could defend better, actually. Hang on, sorry. Maybe white can defend a little bit better by leaving the king closer to the e pawn. The thing is, you can never actually go to the e file, because then this is check and rook takes e4 defends this pawn. So is there some kind of a defense where you just sit here? White's also in danger of getting Zugzwang. Well, I guess there's rook b4, rook c4. Maybe we're not 100% done with this. Is this done if white leaves the king here? Definitely a better chance to leave the king here than to go this way. That was clear. Oh, white's lost. Coder Future, I think, figured it out. Professional move. Magnus approves. I approve too, Coder Future. Yeah. That's funny, Raphael. Yeah, so rook a1 is going to happen. And basically, if your king doesn't come over, black can play a3, a2 with the rook on a1, right? And eventually they've got this rook h1 winning maneuver, just like Coder Future said. And if the king comes over, then black plays rook e1 takes e4. White deals with the a pawn, and then black cuts the king off on c4 or b4 or something, So yeah, it's dead lost. Thanks for the raid, Mechanics. Hope you guys are enjoying a Saturday. Hope you just ran a fun Saturday morning game 45 tournament or something like that. We're running a classical tournament right now through the internets. Here, a match against Zurich. Well, do tell. Did San Francisco win or did Zurich win? This is awesome that with the building block of the Lucena and Philidor, with the building block of the idea of cutting the king off from the pawn, with the building block of figuring out this whole endgame was winning for black, we can then backtrack here and think of what if white doesn't run the king here and figure out this slightly more complicated endgame with 3 pawns on the board. I feel very good that we were able to learn something. We lost to Zurich. Oh. Sadness. Well, all right. We learned something. That was awesome. I loved that endgame. Sorry. Apologies to my dear Cartier. But that was awesome for me to see. Eyelash down to 3 minutes in this game. Let's catch up. Bishop d7. Rook d1. Knight c8. Probably knight back to c4 or something to try and push b6. Oh no, knight c4, bishop b5. Knight e4. Okay, challenging that dark squared bishop. Oh! Hang on, isn't this just dead? Oh no, there's no bishop takes removing the defender because that's check. Good lord. Eyelash is hanging by a thread. By a thread. They are not yet, David Menchik. They are not. It was nice of them to get in there and live check some games for us, but I want a little more of a check. Okay, so white plays queen f2. Oh, man. Yeah. Knight can't move. What can... Oh, this is just murder. Bishop took it. Oh, no! My king! I didn't know you were going to come for my king, too. And now knight takes d7 because of checkmate on f6. Oh, one last trick! Look at this. Look at this little eyelash that Eyelash is hanging on by. If queen takes knight, many of you are probably familiar with this checkmating pattern. And if queen takes g5, perhaps rook g8 saves black, although it's not even guaranteed. I mean, black might just be losing in this position here, but you know, g5, queen g4, saving the knight on the diagonal. I mean, at some point, black's just got to be dead here. I mean, at some point, there's got to be a stake in the heart. Well, a crushing and instructive game from this Maroczy bind. I think the critical mistake may have been e6, weakening the d6 square. I do fairly poorly in these positions myself, by the way, as black. So now presumably knight f6 to save the queen. Can you play g takes f then rook g1? Ah. Thanks, Coder. G takes F, and then if bishop takes F4 to play there, yeah. That makes sense. I think that white might go here, and then block the G file with the bishop, with the idea of maybe bishop F6 at some point, or knight F6 here. Also, the bishop can be supported by H4, so it's hard to break through. Black, of course, has some checks they could try on this diagonal, but the king looks for the moment like it can hide on H1. And Menchik says that instead of bishop F4, queen G7 is mate. Basil too. I don't see a refutation to this. Okay, rook G8 was played, and F takes G5. Surprising to me, who expected knight F6, but I don't think anything really matters at this point. How do you find good moves? Well, that's rather too broad a question, Moo Guy. You're going to have to get a bit more specific. But if you're asking such a question, I'm going to guess that you're pretty new to the game and that this video here that I made will be perfect for you. So go bookmark or watch that thing, and then you're going to have to work for a while to be able to play good moves. But that should set you on the right path for the work you have to do. Yeah. All right. How's the G file coming along? What was the decision here from Abulhid? To run the king towards the center instead of the corner. Okay, so we get a different position. Black tucks, white runs. And that's where we are here. I think Abulhid should have probably done the same thing as Stefano of like king H1, rook to G1. But we'll find out. We'll find out. I mean, more than the question of which king is better or worse, what we might find out is how important is the only open file on the board, which black has made a beeline towards and white is not yet getting to. That might be what we actually learn here as far as like the difference between the approaches. It might not be where the king is safer, but who manages to get control over the only fully open file with their rooks. Does that sound like it might be a significant factor in this position? Perhaps even a decisive factor. Why, yes, it does. It could be Charlie. If you're not getting enough playing time in, it could be like slowing your development. On the other hand, if it's fun and sustaining your love for chess, you might, who knows which scenario leads to the most really, really long-term improvement. But in the short term, as you know, it's very important to maintain time and space for your own practice. Yeah, I think that if you're actively engaged with the chess positions on stream, then it counts as studying. When we fall into too many digressions about, meatballs and different kinds of cars and people's favorite colors and stuff, if that distracts you from looking at the chessboard, if it distracts me from providing any analysis, then that time wouldn't really count as your chess study time. Hey, Cartier. I've got probably another hour, Cartier. I imagine you're pretty tired at this point. But if you'd like to pop on for a little bit, that would be lovely. All right, the queen went all the way back to d2. So that means that queen h6 was some significant lost time for white. Now black needs to choose the best square for their queen and then bring the other rook to g8 probably. Maybe start looking at opening up the center since that's where the white king's headed. So maybe the best way to get the queen involved here would be like f6, f5 followed by queen h4. What are you guys thinking here? What would you play as black at this point? Who won the last classical tournament? Do you mean the weekend one in March, Nikaru, or the April tournament? Because right now we're watching the last round of the April tournament, round 4. The May tournament will start on Monday. David Menchik, who is in chat, definitely tied for first place in the 1850 plus section. That's for sure because he scored 4-0. So, hey Cartier, whoops.
Hello.
How's it going? Let me put your face into better position here. Cut this off. Okay.
I see a big logo.
What's that?
Big logo of Chess Dojo.
Big logo of Chess Dojo. I've replaced the logo with your face now in the stream.
Okay.
Oh, you mean from my video on Zoom? That's because my video is already on the in OBS instead of in Zoom. Okay, I think I've got you captured well. All right, everybody, we are joined by Cartier Tank. Yay!
Hello.
Formerly Sombrero, or even Rose Water.
Rose. Wow, you remember that? Wow. I used to be Rosewood.
Rosewood, the first name under which you attacked me like a spider monkey. Came at us like a spider monkey. Kosti and I playing together against you.
Yeah. That was nice. Nack-Manson Gambit.
Nack-Manson Gambit, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you use that yesterday in the Mega Rapid? The Nack-Manson,
right?
I played
that, but nobody takes on c3.
Yeah.
So I think I should abandon that opening.
Yeah.
Because after knight takes c3, it is slightly worse for white.
Slightly worse and no fun. So like, why?
No fun. Yeah. No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, obviously you're going to be a bit tired after playing a classical game. We thought that your defense in that endgame was pretty impeccable, but it just came up slightly short. The position was just losing, I guess.
Yeah, probably because my king was cut off, and I mean my opponent played very well.
Yeah.
And I tried my best, but I don't know. I tried to check from the back. I tried to check from the side.
Did everything a rook
Uh,
could do.
yeah, finally, my opponent's king had a touchdown on my, you know,
Yeah,
back rank, and then it was lost.
and then it was lost. All
Yeah,
right, so you've played a long game, and it's late in Turkey, but nevertheless, you're going to help me look at some of the games that are still going on.
yeah, sure. Let's have a look.
All right. If I just tell you the names of who we're watching, does that let you load the games, or do you want me to send you links to which games we're
No,
looking at?
I think I can find them,
You can find them. Okay.
hopefully.
So right now we have up the game between Abolhid and Stefano Bagino.
Wow. Okay, they are not in my friend list, but
Okay. So Abolhid is Abolheed.
that's. Can you repeat?
Yeah. Abolhe.
O L.
Yeah. Abolheed.
Okay, I need to search members. Right.
Somebody's whispering to me that there's an intense game being played by. Whoops, how do I even find it? Being played by Jedi Knights.
Okay, Jedi Knights is easier to spell.
So let's try that too. Well, Jedi Knight's name is Got These Jedi Knights Yo or something like that. It's a little bit more complicated.
Can you send me the link from
Yeah, I
Discord?
can.
I think that's the best.
Okay, I'm adding another game there. Chess Games. Then we've got Banana Stands game. So that would be. I think it's Banana Stand 3. Banana Stand 3? Yep. Oh, and the opponent is I Got Jedi Knights Yo. Okay, so I've got the game. I'm going to send it to you in Zoom or Discord or, well, actually, I guess Zoom. More. Let's chat. Okay, here's a direct link to the Jedi Knights Yo game. Looks like there's another game from Jage, so I'm going to add that as well to my search. Oh, lots more games coming in. Okay, cool. Let's just keep it going. We got Jage against Daster. We got Gazalam against Steve
Okay.
North.
I see a rook on e2. Knight e2, rook e2.
Okay, which game are you at?
Banana stand
Banana Stand.
versus Jedi Knights.
Whoa! A rook just came into e2.
Yeah.
Oh, it's pretty vicious. It's pretty vicious.
Well, the knight is also hanging now.
Yeah. Yikes.
It was a Slav defense. I used to play the Slav.
You used to play the Slav defense, huh?
Yeah. Classical Slav.
So it started out bad for black, probably losing the b7 pawn. But then I think when white tried to take the second pawn on d5, that was too aggressive, probably. That's probably where Banana Stand like pushed too far with the position and needed to just play a move like e3 and bishop b5, kind of developing more pieces. So white took on d5, black had queen a5 check, hitting the knight and the king. The knight retreated, rook b8, and obviously black has the initiative.
e4. Bishop a2 is a funny move.
Yeah, what do you think of bishop a2? Is that a good move or a bad move? Bishop b4 already would be the alternative.
Bishop b4 probably, yeah. First. I mean, bishop a2, yeah. Probably black was afraid of d5 and wanted to get out.
Mm-hmm.
But probably bishop b4 was better, maybe. Bishop b4, knight b2. So bishop a2 played, bishop c4, attacking the pin piece. And now bishop b4, knight e2 defense, rook e2, yeah, nice move.
Let the beatings begin.
Yeah, and bishop c2, the rook will also drop, probably.
Yeah.
After bishop c3.
So after king takes e2, black would probably have to take the bishop on c4 check.
If I follow you on chess.com, can I see your analysis?
1 second. You can take over.
So king takes e2 is the best, probably getting out of the pin. King takes e2, bishop c3, rook a2. Was it? Oh, white is thinking. So queen e2, bishop c3 check, and the rook also drops. Although king e2, there's bishop c4 check, attacking the rook. Knight e2 is also impossible.
Around 1 o'clock when you're leaving?
So what else can white play? Nothing.
Hey. A lot of tears, but I think he's okay.
Yeah, white is thinking still, but yes, king e2, bishop c4 check. King, where's the king going? King d2.
Mm-hmm.
Bishop c3, queen c3, queen c3, king c3. And I guess black's better.
Well, miraculously, white would be fine here.
Yeah. I mean, it is 2 pieces for the rook, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the pawn count is same.
But it looks like black's going to be able to play rook takes a... It looks like white's going to be able to play rook takes a7. Right? If white plays rook a7, it's not so easy for black at all.
So maybe king e2, bishop c4, check. King d2, maybe there's a better move, but...
Exactly. This bishop takes c3 move must be terrible because white's king is in the center of the board. The knight can't move, and suddenly we're trading off our queen and
Everything.
bishop for white's queen and knight, right? If black simply keeps the queens on the board, this should be really, really scary for white.
So
So,
king e2.
so maybe queen b6, or Elliot wanted queen c7 here, but I think his point was on any queen retreat for black, he thinks the game's going to be pretty easy for black.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, so that's what Banana Stand's looking at. It's not pleasant. Banana Stand's paying a lot for that d5 pawn that they wanted to eat.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to pay the price. Pawn grabbing. So if I follow you on chess.com, can I see your board?
No, because I'm not using an analysis board. I'm just following all these people. There's a channel on Discord, which is what I use to find these games. It's the Dojo Classical channel.
Yeah.
So if you use that channel, you could find all sort of the same games as me. I see that Freddie Potzer's game has ended and Alexa's game has ended. 2 games that we didn't even see today, unfortunately. But maybe we can cover them in an episode of the
There are a
postmortem
lot
then.
of games.
There are so many games that we can't see them all. Let me just check if there's an episode tonight of the postmortem for this classical tournament, because often we do that Saturday nights.
Is there a, what was it called, gauntlet today?
No gauntlet today. Oh, yep, I'm doing the postmortem tonight. So it looks like tonight at 9 p.m. I'll be looking at games from this tournament that we didn't get to look at live.
Well, 9 p.m. That's a bit late for.
Yeah, late for you. But your game we've already looked at.
Yeah, I caught some of it, yeah. I played, there was, I think, a wrong move. H4 was a bit optimistic. So which game should we look at? There is a game by Chess Games. Your old student in Sensei.
Oh, that game looks very interesting to me. I'm going to click around for a second and pick a secondary game for us. Let's see. Ooh, the Daster game looks interesting too. Steve, maybe we can click through 6 different games, Cartier, and you tell us which side you would like to play, white or black.
But when I click the Chess Games game, it opens the Banana Stand game.
Well, that's weird.
Okay, let me try again. Yeah, it does it.
It does it. All right, I'm going to send you links. I'll send you links to all the games. Why not? Here's another game. I'll click here to Daster. I give you another game. And in theory, if you keep opening up these links, it'll keep the games you already have open. So eventually, you'll be able to sort of just click between them. They should all be open in the same live chess window for you.
Okay, I have Idle Player versus Chess Games.
Nice. I'm just going to keep deluging you. Deluge. I'm going to keep putting games here for you.
Oh, okay.
Look how many there are.
Okay, it is updating and adding all the games. Nice. So, which one?
All right, let's start with Chess Games and Idle Player. Whose position do you like better, and why, if you like?
Idle Player. It's a mess. Probably black.
Probably you like black.
Right.
Okay, what do you like about Black's
But
position?
why, you will ask?
And if there's no why, that's okay too. We can just see who you like.
Yeah,
Take
for
it.
example, whose turn is it? White's turn. Queen f5, bishop d4 check,
Right?
for example.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, the knight on g4 it has a great outpost. I mean,
Yeah,
just in front of the king.
yeah. I was gonna say that the knight on g6 is pretty well like stopped at the moment, but then I realized that a very likely move for Black is h4 pretty
Yeah,
soon.
h4 is also coming. Yeah,
Well,
and
my
other
instinct
knights.
my instinct is the opposite of yours. I like white, sort of by first instinct, first look. I just think that Black's position is loose on some of these light squares, that the e pawn is like risky, etc. But without thinking too hard about it, we'll go on to another one. Okay, Daster and Jage.
Yeah.
Who do you like?
Yeah. Yeah, Black has a piece up, but to connected passers look very dangerous. Turn is it? White's turn.
White's turn too, yeah. For those who want to see what happened, there was a big fight in the center here. Black played e5. White took on d5, hitting the knight. Takes. And here, potentially White could have played gf3, pawn takes c6. All right, then White might have been up one pawn, but with their king pretty badly hurt, f takes e3 hurts White's dark square some more. So rather than doing that, White chose to keep their king safe and sack a piece to get another pawn on b7. So, which side do you want?
I think White.
Same. I think these pawns are going to cost Black.
Yeah,
Each one's going to cost Black a piece.
Yeah, probably a rook and a piece.
Yeah. And my instinct is to play like maybe a really stupid move, but to just take another pawn on f4 with my queen.
My first instinct is rook ad1.
Yeah. My first instinct also was to play rook d1, trade a rook, maybe bring the second rook. My other thought was to play c6, right? But after I looked at
c6, yeah.
But after I looked at c6 and rook d1, against both moves I played queen c4 for Black. And then I thought, that queen's well placed on c4. That's really annoying. And it was so annoying that I came up with the idea of queen f4.
Yeah, I see.
But now
Okay,
I'm seeing...
played.
Yeah. Now I'm seeing this variation. If Black plays queen c4, White could trade the rook once and then play queen f4. And that probably wins the game. We don't need to save the c pawn in this variation.
After queen c4, right?
Yeah, after queen c4. Trade
queen
once.
c4, take, rook d1.
Oh, you want to do rook d1 here, huh?
No. Okay, you said queen f4, right?
I had queen f4. I thought it was just winning, but you're right. Rook d1 also looks winning.
Queen c5, b1.
On queen c5, yeah, we can go here. Yeah. Okay, so we're probably right about this one. We both think White's probably winning. We'll go on to the next one. Gazalam against Steve North. For some reason, the name Gazalam sounds like a Turkish name, but they're flying the American flag.
Gazalam.
Is that a word in Turkish, Gazalam?
No, not exactly.
No, okay. Is ananas kafa pineapple head in Turkish?
Yeah.
Okay, that one is Turkish, yeah.
Yeah, that guy is also Turkish, but I never, had conversation with him about Dojo or something.
Right, right. I don't assume that just because someone's from Turkey, like they're your buddy or anything.
Yeah, I mean, but there are quite a few players from Turkey.
Yeah.
I think yesterday's Mega Rapids, there were probably, including me, maybe 4 players, 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So knight b6 played.
Yeah.
Okay,
It
d7
looks
is
like
hanging.
in total yesterday we had 129 players participate in the Mega Rapid. So that tells me, that answers the question I'd been wondering about, which is how many late joins can you have in a chess.com tournament? So we started with 100 or 99 or something like that. And so to have 129, I'm guessing it was 30%, and that's where it cut off late joins. Okay, all that said, okay, Gazalam. Would you rather be Steve North or Gazalam today?
Wow, it's very chaotic. So the material count is the same. And it feels like white is better, but the white king is a bit funny there.
Yeah,
Too
the white king
restricted.
is boxed in uncomfortably. Hey, casual
Yeah.
player, welcome to the show.
Bishop f4, queen, although the queen cannot come easily.
Yeah. White's played exactly what I expected, by the way. So if
Takes,
Steve
takes
North
knight
if Steve
d5.
North wanted to play like a GM, you know, my condolences. He's playing like an IM at least here. This is what I would have done. Traded the light squared bishop, put the remaining knight on d5.
Yeah.
My evaluation is that it's basically very close to equal. Tiny advantage for white. If you have to pick which side you want, I would pick white.
Yeah, the queen is also a bit funny on f8. Queen.
Yeah.
And there's the back rank at the moment for black. Maybe a Luft and then activate the queen. Although, even after that, the d7 rook is hanging to queen c8 check. I mean, you have to also secure the rook, maybe.
Actually, it's noticeable. Look how many of black's pieces are undefended right now.
Yeah.
Every single like
Everyone.
non-pawn, right?
Yeah.
That's not a feature of like what GM games look like, right? Like they don't just have everybody chilling on their own.
Okay, now the rook is defended twice.
Yeah, now there's 2 out of 4 pieces are defended with 1 move. So that's a move that's cleaning up, you know, your bad tactical issues. Anyway, to me, the basis of white's small advantage would be that white has a pawn on a light square in the center and black has a pawn on a dark square with these dark squared bishops. It means white can outpost their knight on squares like d5 and f5 where the bishop can't attack it. Whereas if black outposted the knight on e5 or c5, white could attack it with their bishop. Just a small little edge for white.
Rook f1 may be very annoying.
Yeah, so look, black's fixing all their hanging pieces. That's very nice, but it now occurs to me this piece can't retreat. So my concern is, you know, does white have a way to take advantage of that? Piece that's low on squares. Anyway, we'll
I was thinking rook f1 and bishop d4.
Yeah, that could put some pressure. A lot of pieces coming to good squares.
f6.
Oh, here's another move, by the way. I know it's like totally in the other direction, but knight c7 attacks a6 and e6.
Yeah. Knight c7. Nice.
Yeah.
I am trying to open the links you sent me. So yesterday somebody got banned, right, because of cheating.
Yeah.
I I missed that. I was playing.
Yeah, that's good. It's good to be focused. If you're playing a tournament, you want to miss everything else that's happening during that tournament. You don't want to know if, there was an earthquake or anything. Just play your
Yeah,
moves.
yeah. The Mega Rapid is very tiring. I mean, you have no quarter, no time to rest anything. And my all my games were very long,
Yeah. Your
so it
video your
was very
video just
tough.
your video just turned off. I don't know if that was on purpose, but
Yeah, I did it on purpose
okay.
because at the moment there's a problem with the connectivity.
Oh, okay, okay.
I am in the balcony and the wireless is sometimes not strong.
Okay.
Okay, so what happened in Banana Stand?
We've got a couple more games to pop around. So,
Oh, okay, okay.
Abelheed against Stefano. I
Yes.
I know who you're gonna say, but do say it. Do you like white or black?
The White King is in the center, so probably black.
Yeah. Same for me. I would love to take a couple shots at that king. Okay. Cheesy Driver versus Yar.
Yar.
How are these guys doing?
Where
I
is
guess
Yar from? Taiwan.
Taiwan, yeah.
Wow, what's this? Okay, two passers,
Two
not
passers
connected.
extra for black.
Yeah, the Black Queen is, the Black King is a little bit breezy, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm guessing that at some point this game white played e6 and f5 to try and trade black's, black probably had like a Banco kind of game or Benoni or something, right? Probably a Banco. With pawns on h7 and f7, right? And white probably played f5 and traded on g6 and e6. So white definitely, the way the game got here is white was trying to checkmate black.
Yeah, for example, Queen d4, Rook a7 is dangerous. Looks red dangerous. But Queen d4, there's knight f3 check. Nice.
That's a problem. So whose position do you want?
Blacks in this one, black.
Yeah, this attack has bounced off black. They've got enough pieces on
And the
on
White
really
King
good
is
squares.
also White King is also in danger, right?
Exactly. When you pawn storm, if you miss, then your own king becomes a subject of interest. So, yeah. Okay, Seth versus Lucas.
Okay, I need to find that.
This one is a Banco, by the way. That other one just looked like a Banco, but apparently it didn't start as a Banco. But this one was a Banco. I saw the opening.
Okay, zoom. I lost zoom. Huh.
Did you lose my links on Zoom?
Okay, set Lucas. Banco. Okay, Lucas plays the Banco. In c2. Or
I'm
okay,
just
okay.
clicking
Let's
through the
find the
moves.
position.
What's that?
Okay, let's find the position. I said.
Yeah. So how's black doing?
Black is fine, I think. It's black small.
Okay. It's tricky. Black's in danger of being down a pawn. I mean, they are down a pawn, but they're in danger of being down a pawn with a weakness on d6 and a bad bishop on f8. Positionally speaking, black's losing. The only real hope is some kind of tactic on the c file right now. But I guess after rook a3, white could play rook b3 if they need to. And so I'm going to say this position's winning for white. Completely. Completely dead.
Yeah, the black bishop, dark squared bishop is supposed to be the best piece in Banco. Maybe one of the best pieces, right? Now trying to defend d6.
Yeah. Maybe dead is an over exaggeration. Black has a tricky move with knight d7 here to bring that knight to c5. I was afraid that white was basically going to play king e2 in one or two moves, and then black would resign. But actually, I mean, the calculations here are a bit tricky. You know, knight d7, maybe rook c6, knight to b4. There's
c6,
even
knight c5.
Maybe knight c5, yeah. One line I looked at was trades and then knight b4 to win the pawn on c6. But then for white, I would probably sack the rook, put the pawn on the 8th rank, and play knight d5 at the end. Maybe black's okay. Wow, maybe black's okay.
Yeah, the Banco will surprise you, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I think knight d7. I think knight d7 might be an interesting move for Lucas here.
Yeah, knight d7.
Yeah.
Comes with tempo as well.
Yeah. So maybe it's not dead yet, but black's definitely in trouble. Black's definitely in big trouble here.
Yeah.
And then a game, just a pure rook endgame. So we can just test what we know here. Chess in black and white versus counter sparks.
Okay. Okay. White has a passed pawn. Wait. Okay. A7 plate. So rook d8 is threatened.
Yeah.
And what should black do? King. Probably king c7, king d7.
The black king has to go to e7
But
to
then
avoid.
the white rook will e7. Why e7?
Why e7? Black has to not give white room to play rook f8 with rook f7 check available. So if king c7 or king d7, black would lose to rook f8.
Tactic. That's another of those patterns, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So the only
So king e7.
This is e7.
Should white go after the pawns and
I think
give up the a pawn?
Yep.
King e7, rook h8.
Nope.
Rook a7. Oh,
not h8.
King e7. Not h8.
It's a very, very important difference. White should not go to h8.
I don't see that.
It's rook to g8. so that you split the opponent's pawns. Yeah.
For example, g6. How about your queen? Okay, rook a7.
Yeah.
And you will take, yeah. Okay.
We have to split the pawns to have any chance of winning here. If we went like rook h8, rook h7, black could play g6 and...
Yeah. g6 and both pawns are protected.
This position here, black can still draw, but it's very hard to.
It was unnecessary probably, right? King c6. Rook c8, king b7. Can you go into the pure king and pawn at game?
On which move?
Rook c8, king b7, a1, a8, queen takes, and...
I don't know how you got there.
Rook c8 check. No.
What? Rook c8 check?
Yeah, the king is on c6, but it is in the game.
In the game, the king's on c... Oh, it just went to c6. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Okay, sorry. So you're wondering if white can do this. Trade into the pure endgame. If the king gets to e7, white wins. If it doesn't, it's a draw. So king, 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 and black keeps you out. It's a draw.
Yeah, that's what I suspected.
Yeah. Okay, so king c6. He wants to come over here. But the interesting thing is black's not really threatening king b7, because on king b7, rook f8 wins the game. Oh, maybe black's planning king b6. Okay, it must be king b6. But I think rook g8 still wins here, just like it would have been the best move against king e7. I think here it's going to win.
Yeah, black has a lot of time, but...
Oh, Julio with an interesting variation. Yeah, okay, that's very good to point out, Julio. Okay, so in the live position, Julio is saying on rook c8 check, if black plays king b7, you can then go rook to f8. And that would win. So on rook check, it would be... Oh, on king b6, you can queen. Oh, rook check wins the game right here. Julio's absolutely right.
So rook c8, king b7, rook f8. And then rook a7.
Yeah, rook check, king here, rook to f8. And then whatever black does, white gets rook f7 check, and then either trades the rook or wins all the pawns. Yeah, this is winning. Oh, white played king b3.
Yeah, why king b3?
Okay, well, white definitely has a win here. All right, let's go back to the craziest of games. Actually, I'll quickly update the Jedi Knights situation. It's happened exactly what we were talking about. Bishop check. The king came to defend the knight, and Jedi Knights correctly kept queens on the board. White defended against queen d4 check with queen e3, and black just gets castled. Very, very simple. And looks forward to the rest of this game with great amusement, because this is like the Abelhid Stefano game. This is a game where we know which side Cartier wants. Cartier wants to play against the king in the center.
Yeah, of course. Everybody wants.
No, not everyone wants. You want the king in the center.
Okay.
There's all kinds of different chess players.
So a5 maybe here.
Yeah, a5 maybe, or rook to d8. If you look at this position, okay, you could watch out for tactics against your bishops, which are not very well defended. But if white has no tactic to win your bishops, then the pieces that need to be improved are the rook and the knight. And the rook will be best on d8 at the moment, probably, and the knight actually needs to go through f8 to get good. So That means unless white's threatening something with rook a4, which they're not, because rook a4 actually loses the rook on b1. Unless white's threatening something with rook a4, we could expect rook to d8 here for black.
Yeah. Okay, or a4 bishop c3, right? Check.
Yeah.
Rook a4, bishop c3, check, queen c3, queen b1, queen c4.
Black's up a knight.
Yeah. And the black king is safe, of course, so there is no at least on that front.
Yeah, black's king is super snug. He's got 4 pawns in front of him instead of 3. Quite a contrast with the white king out in the middle. All right, so Jedi Knights is thinking about that, but I think it'll be interesting for us to check out Idle Player against Chess Games, because that's the one that our instincts disagreed on. You liked Max's position. I liked Oscar's position. So let's see what happened. Somehow they traded queens. I'm sure you'll disapprove. Let's see. C6. Bishop f3.
Did we leave the game here?
Yeah, we left it at move 21. C6, bishop f3.
Oh.
Interesting. Max was in a hurry to take queens off the board himself.
So wait, bishop f3, queen b6, check.
Mm-hmm.
King g2, queen d4, yeah. Takes.
Surprising that Black didn't play something more aggressive, huh?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just went there and exchanged the queens.
Yeah. Gosh, and what's going on here? I mean, knight e4 is a very complicated move by Idle Player. Okay, he might want to take on d6, or he might want to go to g5, but what's more obvious is all the things he's leaving hanging. His own knight, the pawn on b2.
Mm-hmm. So f e4, bishop takes g4. E3, bishop c3, right?
Mm-hmm. And now you can
pawn on e6 will be dangerous.
Yeah. So black could trade. What's that?
In near future, it will be dangerous.
Yeah.
There's also the knight check. I mean, getting out of the attack. Knight e3 check takes, and knight d6. Yeah.
Which knight are you thinking? Knight to e3 check at the beginning?
Yeah, the knight on g4.
Okay. So white would trade it, probably? And then play knight takes d6, right?
Yes. I mean, knight e3, bishop takes e3, also attacks the bishop.
Mm-hmm.
Knight e3 takes, e takes f. No, that's complicated. For example, knight e3 check, bishop e3, and f takes e4. What about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But there
bishop.
is also bishop takes e4, and now our two pieces are hanging.
Right. So we have to trade on e3, and after bishop g6, pawn takes g3, f5. It looks like white's actually just e7. Why even use the second pawn, right? e7 wins the game.
Yeah, very tricky move, but probably it's working.
Yeah. Well, overall, it's feeling a bit risky for black. We could also take none of these pieces with black and just play rook a to e8 in the current position. And I would expect that white would play knight g5 to keep the e-pawn.
Yes.
But maybe there's other stuff to do. But I would expect knight g5 holding the e-pawn. And then the question is, what's my follow-up now if I'm black? How do I fight? How do I fight here? The e-pawn is a problem unless I can take it.
And the knight is gone.
Yeah. All right. 1 p.m. is when I was scheduled to end, but let me just go see if my kid is napping. Then we can keep going a little bit. So I'll be right back.
Yeah, sure. So black took on e4, bishop takes g4. On bishop c3 and c5 maybe. Yeah. e3 takes rook. It's tricky. e3, bishop c3, c5. Takes, rook d1. And how do we defend that pawn? We can't. e3, bishop c3, c5. Takes, rook a d1. Knight takes f4 check. gf4, rook f4. Yeah, the e6 pawn is dangerous and still alive. If we remove the knight from g6, then h4 will fall and the rooks will come on the h file. Yeah, this is dangerous. Maybe we can play bishop f6 to defend h4 and then put the knight back on e7 and try to contain the pawn. Oh, there's also other ideas. e3, bishop c3, takes, hg3, and f4 is hanging. So what about banana stand rook c8 was played. Queen e3, short cancel, hb1, rook d8. Defend. Okay. Where was that game? I lost the game.
Which one did you lose?
Chess, black and white. The last one we were looking at.
Chess Gains and Idle Player.
Yeah, I am having connection issues at the moment.
Okay, I can send you the link to the Chess Gains one again. No problem. Okay, here's the latest link for that one. It looks like one piece did just get traded.
I need to also, my battery is low, my laptop battery.
Oh. Yeah, Dubious Savant. I do expect E3 here, definitely.
I don't have that game in my
In your life.
list.
Okay. Well, another thing you could try is you could type this. And that would also probably bring up the game for you.
Oh, I clicked something and now the Zoom is not responding at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, let me know when it's working for you again. I'll just look at this position for a moment here. So 94, FE4. Bishop G4. So basically, black's long-term chances are not looking super right now with this E6 pawn. So that's why I'm really inclined to look at just capture-y moves for black here. If black tries to fight these pawns head-on, white can always play F5 here and tuck the bishop like this. And I just don't really like black's prospects like that. So I'm really looking at E3, pawn takes pawn, and knight F4 as moves here. Bishop takes B2. I guess we could look at if we thought that a pawn might matter more than this, which I don't really think it will. But rook B1. So we don't even have to look too hard at this because we know that it's not worth it to let the white rook into the 7th rank. So pretty much it's down to E3, I think. He's running for office.
Hello, David.
Hi.
Hello. The Zoom is not responding at the moment, so I cannot click anything.
Oh, that's weird.
Which game are you on?
Idle Player versus Chess Gains. I just heard the ding of a draw offer. Let's see where it is.
Yeah, there was a draw offer, yes.
Wait, Daster is ahead by...
What do you think about draw offers, David?
I don't make them ever.
Ever?
Ever. I haven't offered a draw in ages.
Yeah, probably same here.
Maybe ever. Okay, well, the one game that I think should be a draw is Chess in Black and White versus Counter Sparks, but that's not where the draw was offered. The draw was offered between Seth and Lucas, and it looks like Seth has declined the draw offer, and so that game will continue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
and I
drew
think...
our game yesterday again with Seth.
Uh-huh.
We had a draw in the Mega Rapid. Oh, it's
And looking at some of the other games, it looks like Daster is winning the game against Jage. This was one that we both agreed that we liked white. After rook d1, queen retreats, pushed the c pawn, queen e5, queen f4. Oh my goodness. And black just can't control the c7 square here. So they lost a whole rook. For the b pawn, they're going to lose another piece for the c pawn. This one might be the queen. So this game is all over but the crying.
yeah, the pawns are coming now.
Here's what Acratic asks about draw offers. Do you offer a draw when you're worse? That's insulting your opponent. Do you offer a draw when you're better? Why would you do that?
Yeah, good one. Yeah.
And he says, I guess I offer draws in opposite color bishop positions where we have to move back and forth for 50 moves otherwise.
Yeah, I played one yesterday.
Yeah.
Probably you saw it.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I had two pawns up and still the opposite color bishop and game was draw.
Yeah. Still a draw. Okay, so the Daster game's not too interesting. Steve and Gazalam. Steve did play the knight c7 move. Wow. He went for that a6 pawn. He spotted it. And took a pawn on d5. And rook takes e5. Nice complicated tactics from Gazalam to keep the game going. Here, here, here. Back rank. Okay. Okay. It's Ed Vanderswan, okay? And I've sent you the email. All right. Are you connected, Cartier? Disconnected and reconnecting. Okay. So, folks, we see Steve North still with that extra A pawn. So, spotting that knight c7 to a6 idea might end up being the decisive moment of this game, of a very closely balanced game. Gazalam played some really good defense to trade off the d6 pawn and not let anything worse happen to them. So, yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Finally, Zoom collapsed.
Finally gave up completely, allowing you to change something about it.
So, which game are you looking at?
I just clicked through a couple of them for a moment each, and I saw that Steve North was still up a pawn, and that game's looking very, very high quality. So maybe let me check on the other king in the center, Abulheed's king. I'm gonna see if Stefano's making progress.
D5 was played.
Wow. It's actually chaotic. It's chaotic. We can see the white queen and the white rook are sort of aiming at black's king. White could have played knight f5 here. He just played knight d5, but knight f5 looked pretty strong too.
Yeah, yeah.
And wait, speaking of chaos, where's black's second piece? Back up. What happened? Queen e7, rook g3, rook d8, rook takes h3. Oh no, that's too much, Stefano. That's too much. He has violent intentions, but he can't just do that.
You mean rook d8, giving up the bishop?
Yeah.
Yeah, too optimistic.
Yeah.
I mean, rook d8 doesn't come with. Maybe d5 is a threat, huh?
Maybe,
That's
but it's
fun
not
to
even
see.
clear. And at best, it's a threat to like win back the piece you just lost. At best, right? I mean, there's no way you come out ahead. And white maybe had knight f5 winning a rook, maybe knight d5 saving all the pieces. So, as I see
And
it
after
now,
rook d8, maybe rook ag1 is even possible.
oh, hang on, let me see. Rook ag1. I was just so taken with the fact that black was hanging a bishop that I didn't even
If
look for something
rook
better for white.
g8, then we will take h3 maybe, because the rook is pinned.
Right.
Maybe it is also a bit necessary, but
Yeah, maybe because black could play bishop g4 check. I mean, yeah. I mean, it must be best to just take this piece.
just take it, and d5. There is also yes, knight f5.
Chess in black and white and counter sparks did draw that king and three pawns against king and three pawns.
Yeah, that was interesting because white didn't play rook c8 check.
Yeah, white definitely blew a win that game. If we back up to before it was just rooks, I mean before it was just kings.
These are high-rated players, quite high-rated.
High-rated players, and white can just win easily with rook c8 for a couple moves here. And just made a couple king moves, king b6. I suppose it's too late to win now, but you could still play rook g8 and win a pawn back, but white just sits there and... Wait. And now the black rook goes wandering off and then comes back. It is very, very weird choices. And then 4 moves later chooses to take the pawn he could have taken before. Very, very weird. Very, very weird. Draw.
And what is this final pawn structure called? Does it have a name?
I don't know.
They what did they call it? The bathtub?
The bathtub is when you've got 2 pawns in the middle, and
two
then
on the base, right? There
Yeah.
are 2 on the base. And this is the small bathtub, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Or sink.
The sink. Taking a shower in the sink.
Yeah, it's so funny. And I mean, last position of the game.
Yeah. Another game we were watching just ended. Seth won against Lucas. And just back up a couple moves and see what happened. We were here, king e2 attacking the knight. Knight went to c5. Rook's double. Knight d7, knight b3. And Lucas was just down to a couple moves and drops the rook. White was in command, but of course there's always work to be played left. Yeah, so Obviously, you want to save your rook and make your opponent work for every game and every point along the way. Checking in on some other games. Looks like Cheesy got back to 2 pawns. The Cheesy was down. So things are much better for Cheesy than before.
We might have a special feature tomorrow with the scrubs. I had an offer today, so...
You had an offer today
see.
to appear on Dojo Scrubs.
Yeah, something like that.
I see. Well, you would be the highest rated player to participate on that show so far.
What does scrub mean?
I mean, in general, it means somebody who's bad at something or messes things up.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
In chess jargon, they use Patzer, right?
It's similar to Patzer, exactly.
Patzer.
Yeah.
We are all Patzers, ultimately.
To some extent, maybe, but yeah, I mean,
not the masters. Huh? What do you think?
I mean, I think you play chess pretty well. I wouldn't call you a scrub. But that said, I'm not gonna make a motion that you're not allowed to appear on the show. But I would say you're definitely not a scrub.
Oh, things like this.
Yeah. You could maybe play against all of them at once.
Yeah, that's the idea, actually. I didn't want to give it up, but that's the offer I get to play against them,
Mm-hmm. All 3 of them.
Yeah, they know when I am out of shape, so they want to play now.
We've been watching carefully.
Yeah.
We think this week is our one chance to get you.
But I also watched that show. They did only once, I think. They played against Alexa.
Yeah.
And it was really fun. And that game, it was a sharp game. It was a Botwinic Slav, something like that.
Okay.
It was really fun to watch. Yeah.
Cool.
And they played a nice game.
Mm-hmm.
It was very nice to the end.
So you think it could be fun to play against them?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I mean, I am really out of shape this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully I will get a good result.
Yeah, hopefully you'll get it together, put them in their scrub place.
Yeah. You never know.
Never know. All right, question.
Yeah, sometimes the tilt is real.
Yeah, I've heard that.
When you lose a game, you really lose some confidence.
Mm-hmm.
I think this also happens to the best players in the world, the top.
Not all of them. I mean,
yeah, probably not Magnus, but
yeah. Well, I think Magnus is a bit emotional. He may tilt a little bit, but I think some of them are very stable.
You think, but for example, the Russians say you should draw after a loss, right? Or
right.
a couple of losses.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is definitely a psychological aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
After a loss, you get a little more careful, should I say, or prudent.
Mm-hmm.
But after, for example, dazzling win, tactical win, you get very confident. And then you play stupidly.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Abelhid just got too confident. So we're saying you can get too unconfident and then play badly because you're on tilt, or you can get too confident when you win and then play badly because you're too confident. And I think that Abelhid was sort of like getting a little bit too excited. He was counting the win before it hatched. He was starting to get ready to make this a brilliancy. He's almost winning against a player 200 points higher rated. And then right here, I think blew it with rook takes h7. And you'll see that Abelhid's idea was this move knight d7 check to win the queen.
But there's queen g7.
But it doesn't win the queen. Yeah. So flying too close to the sun. Instead of rook h7, what would you recommend to Abelhid next time around?
After queen f8.
Mm-hmm. We could start with this. Abelhid had 4 minutes on the clock. So after queen f8, about how long would you think and what move would you play?
I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Daster, congrats. Nice game. Beautiful piece sacrifice.
Maybe rook h6, queen h3.
Okay, so a slow motion checkmate over here.
Yeah, because the bishop looks at g8, and how do you defend h7? How about rook 8? Rook h6, defense f6. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But still, you should check, of course. Check carefully.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Because
hilarious.
Your king is the king in the center.
Yeah. So very, very funny in the chat, Cartier. Daster just came in. I congratulated him on that, piece sacrifice with the pawns on c6 and b7. And he says, well, the piece sac wasn't exactly intentional.
Oh.
He forgot the bishop on d3, but won anyway.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it happens like that, right?
Yeah. He counted the pawns and thought he was very winning, and then later realized that he was down a piece as well in that variation, but he was still winning. So, okay, well, my recommendation here for putting the opponent out of their misery would have been the same as Charlie Silva's. I would go knight takes h7 here. Because currently the queen's covering g7, so the rook can't move. The bishop's covering g8, so the king can't move. And I'm threatening knight takes queen checkmate. The best of both monarchs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a nice move. Knight h7.
So I'm pretty sure that's got to be one of the fastest possible wins here for Black. So props to Charlie in chat on that one. Dorum says there's something more stylish, which is fine.
Oh, really?
The key is that within the 4 minutes you have to come up with something good enough. Now let's go to the live position. Abelhid's down to 6 seconds. Trade, piece, rook c8, and with 6 seconds left, the 900 found this move, knight e6. Keeping the game going into the end game, and actually on rook c4, knight g7, rook takes c2 check would be a blunder probably because of king d1. So he'll even have a chance to play c3 after king takes knight c3, and he gets to try out an endgame with 1.5 extra pawns against Stefano. A chance at redemption after blowing things with that other tactic. So failed, rook takes h7.
Yeah, still in the game.
Oh, and Black doesn't want to trade off. Stefano opts to keep it more complicated. Coder Future, you're correct in your calculation. Rook c2 to f2 actually is very good for Black in that line that I suggested. So he wouldn't be able to keep his extra pawn.
Yeah, after playing for our classical game, maybe it's not the best time to commentate for me.
Abelhid playing like purely off the increment here.
Wow, bishop d5.
Yeah. Rook c2 is going to make Black happy. the bishop dropped back to b3, this would have still been winnable for white.
Yeah, yeah. Probably nervous, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just getting out of the attack.
All right, clicking around. Tough endgame between Steve North and Ghazalem still. I think they're both probably doing well to get to this point. Steve has won a second pawn, but Ghazalem has the idea of trying to get his king to h8 and then sack the bishop for the a6 pawn. Wow. But actually, this pawn is so far up the board that if the white king came over and helped the dark squared bishop, you can chase this bishop off of the diagonals to this pawn and actually push it through and queen it without ever giving black a chance to trade the bishop for it. So we'll see how that goes. It should be winning for white here, but with great difficulty. You need some serious skill. Oh, no! No! No, Steve! He didn't know. He didn't know. Ghazalem can play king h7 and offer a draw. Here's a position you could offer a draw if you really wanted to, but again, it's more effective to just put your king on h8 and play king g8, h8, king g8, h8 really fast.
Chess.com kicked me out due to inactivity.
Ah.
I couldn't see the position.
Oh, it's the right colored bishop.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking. And then
well, then this was never that interesting, was it? I was just assuming it was interesting. I'm sorry. The reason I always sound so interested in chess is because I assume it's interesting. Yeah, this is just winning for white with the correct bishop. Okay, we'll move along. Nothing to see or hear there. Banana Stand and Jedi Knights. We've got a piece trade here, which may help white a little bit.
Do you hear the barking here?
A little faint bark. Very, very little.
Oh, okay. Okay, nice.
You have a dog?
By the way, I lost all the links to the game.
Okay. I'll send you some links again.
Chess.com booted me.
So here's the Jedi Knights game. Whoa, what is going on in the Chess Games idle player game? There's another link. Steve North, I'm not going to send you the link. It's over. I'll give you Abelheed and Bagino. So you've got 3 game links here. Probably mostly going to look at Chess Games and Jedi Knights Yo at this point.
So Jedi Knights was winning, right? That's what happened then.
Yeah. What do you think? Tell us what's happening here.
Rook c1 played, pinning the bishop. But bishop b3, queen b3, nothing. What about queen h2 here? Coming back, coming from the behind.
Sorry, what move?
Queen h2.
Queen h2. Yeah. That looks nice. I like pawns, and I like coming from another angle at the king, just like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, they came from behind. Something like that. The white king is still uncomfortable here.
Yeah. The king
There's
is
also
just
knight,
always a problem.
knight e5.
Mm-hmm. Knight here, knight here. The knight's got some hops from there. Yeah. All kinds of fun moves for Jedi Knights Yo to work on.
Uh, maybe Luft to be safe. Back rank.
Yeah. Michiko asking why the white king is out there in the open like that, and the answer is that white took one too many pawns in the opening. And then black was able to start an attack before white could castle. So the king does not want to be there. This is the result of greed. This is what you get for being greedy.
Yeah, there is a nice place on f1, g1, h1, behind the pawns, but he never got there.
Yeah, very hard to get there now with the bishop covering e2 and f1. Two other games have just finished. Stefano did win against Abelhid with the big comeback there, and Steve North won the bishop and correct rook pawn endgame against Gazalam. Fantastic game for Steve, for sure, today. Wow, idle player chess games is pretty complicated.
Rook e6. Yeah, rook h7 is also coming now.
Yeah, that's white's big idea, is that if black takes this pawn, white plays rook h7 check. And if the king goes back to g8, you lose a piece on e7. And if the king goes to f8, you lose a piece on a8. So Chess Games has 11 minutes left. Idle Player has 42. And he's in a tough spot here. Yikes.
Yeah. Maybe bishop h6.
Bishop h6?
Yeah.
Yeah, problem there is now you're not threatening this pawn. Right, so that frees white up quite a bit. And I would guess rook f1 would be next.
There's also the other file.
Yeah, and then white gets to f7 instead of h7, and ugh.
Yeah, but this looks like lost.
Yeah.
I mean, rook h7 is a threat as well.
Yeah, I agree. Looks pretty lost, actually.
The black's other rook never got into the game, probably.
Right. I mean, we have to look at the last 2 or 3 moves and see why this happened. So, after the trade, black took on g3 instead of the e3 move we looked at mostly.
Yeah.
So then after f5, e3, trade and trade. So if black had a moment to get the other rook out, it would have been instead of king g7 on move 30. That would have been the last chance we can see to have that rook appear. Rook a8. And yeah, and then this rook can come to f2 and stuff. But still, black's fighting against two pretty far advanced passed pawns. So we have to assume that it's a bad position for black as well, honestly.
King g8.
Yeah.
Okay, someone played.
Quickly. White is confident.
And what's White's threat here?
Threat? Nothing.
Not yet.
Maybe something like, king g3, and then bring the king
Or
to
maybe
up the board.
rook d6 and bishop e6 is checkmate, right?
Right. But rook d6 lets black take on e7. I guess a threat could be the rook just drops backwards on the e file somewhere, keeping e7 defended and threatening checkmate. So that'll be a very fast threat. That's faster than marching the king in. Yeah, there
So
can't.
what can black do here?
Absolutely nothing.
Rook c8, rook c7, probably.
Yeah, but that's just going to be checkmate anyway if white drops the rook back. You could even play rook e5 for white, I think. There was somebody in chat who wanted style points before Dordom, I think, said that some move I played that 1 and 2 moves wasn't good enough because there was something more stylish. So we could play rook e5
e6
here.
also.
What's
Rook
that?
d6. Rook e3, sorry.
Or rook e3 instead? Sure, rook
Hanging.
e3.
Yeah, it's over now.
Yeah, we're about to see mate in 1 on the
Yeah,
board.
good game. GG.
All right, now folks, you even got to see a checkmate on the board, thanks to Idle Player and Chess Games, playing it out for the fans.
Did you allow checkmates on the board?
Yeah.
David? Some people don't do that, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, if somebody plays like a good game and like attacks my king, sure, I'll play out the moves. I definitely, like, when I was in my period as sort of a professional player, even if it wasn't a tournament with lots of spectators, my thought was always that I should, play for any professional situation, which means the spectators should understand why the game is over when it's over. And it only costs me a very brief moment to play out the last couple moves, right? If my opponent has a winning attack and I've already spent the effort calculating the position to figure out if I had a way out or not. Once I know I don't, I can just play out the moves.
Yeah, I mean, if you resign at a point before the checkmate, or if you got checkmated, I don't know, it shouldn't make any difference, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not to me.
It is like, I lost the game, but I didn't get checkmated.
Oh, to like resign and like run away before they can mate you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we got only one game now?
Yeah, pretty much. There's like a knight endgame with 2 pawns against 2 pawns between Cheesy Driver and Yar. Wait, where did the pawn go? Oh, somehow Yar lost the pawn. Okay, maybe that's become a game we can look at between Cheesy Driver and Yar. For a long time, I was assuming it was kind of a more boring kind of draw. But Counter Spark says the moves exist, whether or not you play them out. Cool perspective. It could be a respectful thing to resign, saying that your opponent sees it or something. But my perspective was, if you're earning money for playing chess, then it's partly because other people are wanting to look at your games and watch your games and see your games. And it's very unsatisfying for the viewers. That's what I was thinking about. Not myself or my opponent, but the viewers. It's unsatisfying for the viewers when the game ends and they don't know why it ended. That was my reason against offering, one of my reasons against offering draws, as well as, my reason for playing things out sort of towards checkmate. If it was a checkmating attack, if my opponent, wins 2 pawns and I know I'm going to lose the game because of the 2 pawns, I'm not going to play 60 stupid moves.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. When I was in high school, I was looking at the games from the Capablanca's book. What was it called? Fundamentals of Chess or something.
Yeah, fundamentals. Yeah, chess fundamentals.
Yeah, I used to play the moves of the game on the board. And then somewhere it says, for example, white resigned, black resigned. And I look at the position and I didn't understand. Why would you resign? Why would you leave the game here?
Right.
I mean, you have a queen, you have some pieces, you can play still, but later, of course, I learned it, but...
Yeah. All right, folks, it's time to wrap up our broadcast for today. So we will leave this very interesting game between Jedi Knights Yo and Banana Stand in suspense for now. I will be back on tonight to go over completed games. So we'll do an episode of the postmortem tonight at 9 p.m. Pacific. And between now and then, I don't know if we have anything else on the schedule for today. I don't think there's anything else scheduled, but perhaps Jesse or Kostya will pop on at some point. But yeah, that's this morning's show. 4 hours passing by in a moment with concentration and focus on classical chess. Thanks to all the participants who, without whom there would be no show, clearly. And before we close, of course, thank you to Cartier for joining us on the broadcast here.
Thanks, David, for having me. I was a bit tired, but next time I will perform better, probably.
You did well. You played a great game for us, so you just got thanked twice, right? You gave us a game to watch, and then you came in and gave us commentary to listen to. But I want to, just one last time before we close the show, give people the link here for those who want to play in the May-June tournament. The second link there is the May-June tournament. It will start on Monday. It is now only 34 hours away. The May-June tournament.
Will this be an eight-round tournament?
It's going to be an 8-round tournament, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So to register, you just go and put your information in that spreadsheet on an empty row. We're at row 65 right now. Just go put your information in for registration. We will add tabs later for the pairings and cross tables for the different sections. Once we see how many players there are, we will split them into sections to play with people close to you in rating, just as it was done in April. So, that's my last announcement. And now all we have left to do is to send a raid somewhere. And let's go over to Fiancetta. We weren't able to send her a 2400 to help her in her sub battle, but we'll go give her a raid, and I will definitely see you guys tonight. Yeah, it's the same thing as this tournament, Daster. You can play your game until Sunday. You get a week, right?
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right. See you tonight. Look at your rating. Did you make 500, Demon? Did you make 500?
The raid is not coming through.
Congratulations if you did. I got to click the raid button. I'll check your rating, Demon.
Okay.
Cheers, everybody.
3 on move 3. And the queen